iRacing.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.
A track which needs no introduction, a series that has been around for many a year in the sim racing sphere, an opportunity to score points and 3 chances to score points maxima. We head over to the north of France, as is normally tradition around June and into July, because the Circuit des 24 Heures du Mans becomes the next place where great racing comes to life. The European region of the Major Series now kicks into gear in what is the mid part of the season, and I tell you what, I can't wait to see 2.4 hours of sim racing action. My name's Jake Sperry here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Joined along with me for today's action is Stephen Koenig, with Daniel Costello in the director's chair using the cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But as we sit and look at a circuit 13.63 kilometers in length, 38 separate turns to deal with in terms of challenge, let's get an understanding, if you are new for the first time, on what makes this track so unique. This is your GSRC track guide.
Welcome to Le Mans. When you talk about legendary circuits, this is a place that stands among the most famous in the world. Part permanent road course, part temporary street circuit, it traipses through the countryside just south of the city where it gets its namesake. Its size matches its reputation as well, clocking it at 8.5 miles, which equates to roughly 13.5 kilometers. However, when you take into account that it's split by only 33 turns, the frighteningly fast nature of this circuit becomes clear. Most of the corners have been added over the century of history it's experienced, but many have become renowned and respected. The 2 turns at the opposite ends of the massively long Mulsanne Straight play equally important roles. Tertre Rouge requires a great exit in order to not lose massive amounts of time, while Mulsanne Corner takes bravery and precision in order to brake as late as possible and keep opponents from passing you on the way in. There's also hair-raising moments like the tricky entry to Indianapolis, or the close walls along the bridge section in the Porsche curves. To win here, drivers will need a very low downforce setup, a good sense of strategy, and heaps of bravery. The 24 Hours of Le Mans is the crown jewel of endurance racing, which many drivers dream of someday winning and many fans flock to witness in person. Once you've driven the track here on iRacing, it's easy to see why.
Well, it's a reason why this track is known as a crown jewel, because it is one of the most amazing throwback circuits that you can possibly find. It's gone through many different iterations over the years, one of the most recent being those two chicanes there of Daytona and Michelin on the backstretch, the Mulsanne. But really a circuit that when you sit down and put it onto paper, Stephen, I don't think anybody looks in the Pays de la Loire region and says, nah, I think I'll give this one a pass.
No, it's most certainly on everyone's bucket list to go through. It's also one of the longest tracks that we get to have a bit of fun with. 13.6 kilometers long means that you have a lot of opportunity to lose time or gain time, especially heading into Indianapolis. Turn 18, turn 19 becomes a rather big sandpit as you make your way to Arnage as well on the exit. And I've seen quite a few cars through the Ford chicanes having a bit of a problem of dropping a wheel out on the dirt.
Yeah, so they've got to be a little bit cautious around this place in terms of how they manage through certain corners. The difficult ones, I would say, are definitely the Porsche curves out there from 23 through to 27. Keep an eye out on the run into Tetra Rouge as well, and the run down the hill through turn number 6 on a track which is Tetra Rouge corner, or the chicane that is Tetra Rouge chicane. And then over through Indianapolis to Arnage, 18, 19 and 20 will also be some very difficult corners to go and get correct. This, of course, being the major series, this is one of the only series that challenges all different facets of driving, and the championship standings then, I believe, will be just about to jump up onto screen, where currently it is Jesper Eriksson up in control, but it is a 3-horse race at the top of the standings with Garen Batten and Trevor Vavrovsky in second and third, 15 and 38 points back respectively. Oscar Fredriksson, teammate to Eriksson, is in fourth with Wayne Hutchison in fifth place, along with Daniel Holmer in sixth. Tom Guest leads a slew of drivers behind him, including David H. Baker, who's just 3 points back, with Daniel Thomas and Ray Partridge rounding out the top 10 in the standings. But a day in which it does depend on what category you want to go out and race. We watch the team standings right now here, Stephen, and it's very clear who's in control there.
Now, SimRace Sweden esports have been on top of their game, but Dog Bear looking to try and put a bit of an issue with that one. Fusion Gold Euro in third, followed by Fusion Silver Euro, Composite Performance, Baby Metal, No Cult Racing, Udox Daisy, Connection Loss Racing, LDL Racing in 9th, and Fusion Bronze Euro in 10th, looking to try and fight their way up through the order.
And I'll tell you what is very interesting. Your top 3 in the championship have each chosen a different class today to go and score their points. So keep that in mind, that they will not be able to directly affect each other as this goes on. Now, this is round 6 of the championship, and it's very similar to what we had at the start of the season at Daytona. 2.4 hours worth of racing, which will need to be conducted in the LMDH, the LMP2, and GT3. So bog standard is what I'd say for endurance racing out there. Open setups for these drivers, but as a little bit of a niche, they've got a spare car here, Stephen, to work with if they do damage somewhere out on track.
And that will be usually with the front suspension that takes a bit of an impact, especially when you're trying to navigate through 3 different classes of traffic. GTPs are always known for having really cold tires at the start that makes them rather unpredictable. LMP2s can get a bit of pace underneath them, but our GT3s will have to keep an eye not only on the apexes, but on the mirrors for all the raging prototypes at them.
Yeah, and the grid then is ready and set, and it will look as follows, starting off with your LMDH field, where Aidan Matthias is on the pole position. Ruben Lasso is alongside for company. Your championship leader, Jesper Eriksson, will go from third, with Aleix Nguyen in fourth position out there. You've then got Oscar Fredriksson and Luke Mann on row 3, with Austin Cobb and Daniel Holmer there 7th and 8th. Sebastian Jackson will start 9th, with Bart Mattia rounding out your top 10. 15 in category we will go through, with Uldis Pateklis, Ryan Walker, a good friend of ours here at the Global Sim Racing channel, in 12th, with Adam Preston, Tom Dreiling and Jerry Furkolb making up the 15 drivers. LMP2 looks an interesting prospect, Stephen.
Tom Gregg's going to be leading out that front row, with Felix Rupert, Jafka Casteco, Alex Crow, Edward Shelley, Michael Hofdason, Travis Whirling, Byron Kutzer in 8th, Garen Barton in 9th, and Matthew Crisp in 10th. Going down to row 6, it's Fabio Grassato, Young Hilden, Cameron Brown, Eric Smith, Stephen Verwain, Chris Tabler, Tom Guest in 17th, with Brian Scover, and Haken Schott in 19th, rounding out our LMP2 field.
It's nice to see Hawken Shirt there out and racing. Most popular category actually there, LMP2. In GT3, Joni Katala will be on the pole with Daniel Thomas alongside. Then it's Jesse Saarinen and Esa Pulkkinen. The Finns have come out in full force. They are 3rd and 4th, with Trevor Favroski in 5th and David H. Baker in 6th position. It's then Richard Cumlin in 7th, with Claude Belval in 8th, Jeff Schmeier and Ray Partridge rounding out the top 10 in class, as Gary Thomas will be in 11th, with Wayne Hutchison, Joshua Hampton, Scott Kukas and Michael Hogg in the 744 car being the last to get themselves set. The drivers now working their way behind the iRacing Porsche First safety car as they run through the Porsche curves and get themselves ready. The tricolor has already been flown as the fantastic French Air Force has flown on by to create the blue, the white and the red of the French flag in the skies. But we will now be getting set and ready for this racing action. 2 hours and 25 minutes. No threat of rain here today, just cold, overcast conditions around this northern France track, and everybody will be set on dealing between the permanent racetrack and, of course, the roads that are used day in and day out around this region of the country. The pace in control with Aidan Matthias, who will take the pull off to the pits. Will the car in front there, P1 Docks with control 1st and 2nd. SimRace Sweden in 3rd, fiercely forward in 4th. Then it's SimRace Sweden in 5th position. Let's get ourselves ready for racing action. The green flag drops and 2 hours and 25 minutes worth of racing starts immediately. And there's initially a good look forward for Jesper Eriksson running up to the Dunlop chicane for the very first time. On the brakes they go as they dance on with the cold tyres, which will take a few laps to get up to speed. And here comes LMP2.
LMP2 off to a great run. Byron Kutzer going to be starting in pit lane, but it's all going to be for Tom Greggs to open up the gap and it really put the hammer down. Our GT3s also now trying to get themselves going, as Essa hoping to pull away in the Mustang with David right on the back of him in the McLaren.
Missed start for the pole sitter there in category, so Joni Katala is going to have to go right from the pit to try and make this race work. It's a comfortable start throughout the pack, it has to be said, as it gets a little busy here in LMP2. Edward Shelley under pressure from Michael Haflidarson out there, who was racing earlier on this morning in the Skip Barber race series that we covered earlier on the Global Sim Racing channel. Haflidarson has to fall back into line because they're going over 300 clicks along the first part of the Mulsanne. His Dallara P217, not enough to get by Shelley at this stage. Travis Walling just behind, trying to think about where to go, but tiptoeing through the opening section. Big catch going through the opening right.
Michael going and holding on for dear life. Those tyres are not warm enough just as yet to brake too late. Doesn't want to ride over the curbs. Daniel Thomas trying to keep his pace going, lost out a bit of time. Sanderin now starting to open up the gap, and you've got the likes of Pulkin going and coming back at him. This is going to be an interesting time. Jesse has an opportunity to try and utilize that top end from the McLaren. It's been strong all season long, and now looking to make an impact here at Le Mans and seeing right into the middle of the circuit, maximizing the pace.
Esa Pulkkinen bump drafting along the Mulsanne. Oh, Brian Scrivener in trouble back there, and that's going to be with Jan Hilden as they hit the second chicane going through. So Hilden had, I think, his own moment trying to get by Fabio Grassetto, and that ticked him around, but then ultimately it was a case of Brian Scrivener having his own little off as he ran through the early stages there of the second chicane, and that brought dramas in. Ruben Lasso losing out then, going through into Indianapolis here on the opening lap. Long lap here around this track. Jesper Eriksson, no surprises, moves up into second position. His teammate fourth in the championship. He's also going to be working in the same category. Now, this creates a very interesting scenario out there, because surely if you wanted to score maximum points, you'd throw your teammate in a different class.
It's also very interesting to see the car choices as Ruben going door to door with the likes of Jasper, and both of them not giving an inch into the Porsche curve. So gonna make life a little bit tricky for both drivers. A little bit of a clip into the wall there as Ruben just managing to stay alive. A quick flash of lights. Jasper saying that was a little bit too close for comfort. Let's try that again a little bit later.
That Cadillac of Jesper Eriksson is not going to be pleased with Ruben Lasso's P1 Docks Cadillac there, no doubt about it. BMW leading the category, and then Cadillacs for the next three. Then it's BMW, Cadillac, 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 Cadillac. Only when you get to Sebastian Jackson do you see the first Porsche out there in play here today. So it's getting a really good understanding of where the balance of performance lies, that Cadillacs have control of the category with the BMWs interspersed. Jan Hilden then still in that 16th place, but dealing with a very, very interesting scenario where a lot of drivers who come into this race aren't necessarily championship hunting, they're stage hunting, they're wanting to get practice in out there before the 24 hours du Mans that comes through, the Majors 24 that's there. And Aleix Noguet going around the outside. That is a lovely pass done on Jesper Eriksson, who goes from third to fifth in as quick as a whisper.
And going and putting it into attack mode, utilizing all the power that the BMW can muster as he tries to gain yet another position down the straight, out of the toe. Stuck between the teammates, he's gonna have the inside line, but who's gonna be later on the brakes as they sink it past the 200-meter mark into the braking zone, and Noguet getting a phenomenal pass and up into third.
It's a good pass by Aleix there to make that move up to third, and now the group's got to start working together. They've got the two teammates on the back of Luke Mann and Austin Cobb who are together, and this is what happened to Jan Hilden on the opening lap of the race. You can see tiptoes into the corner, thinks about the inside, and then maybe slightly locking up the rear axle a bit too much there, maybe, Stephen, trying to avoid contact.
Of going and touching the brakes and also having that front right wheel over the curb, and it just rides, bottoms it out a little bit, gets it rather unsteady, and will have a horrible snap underneath you. Especially with these prototypes, it's a little bit harder to do it, and with the GT3s, it's just all about the major impact. So pushing a little bit hard, as we do see drivers frantically fighting. Eriksson trying to hold the inside line, nearly coming to blows with fellow GTPs in the process.
Has anyone told them that they've got 2 hours and 19 minutes to figure this out and not 19 minutes to figure this out? This is some electric racing to start this one. Hafler Darson now looking to attack Edward Shelley, who is doing very well as far as his results are concerned. So this will be an interesting port of call with Alex Crow in front of that. Then Jefka Keitstecker, who is there in third position. Felix Ruppert in second, and Tom Griggs leading. Hafler Darson, no move down into Mulsanne. It's roundabout to roundabout the Mulsanne straight. but now it's about how you attack off the exit of the corner. They've got a live stewarding team in play here today, so if anything goes too untoward off of any point, there will be stewards to look at it and apply as and when it goes. For example, the 556 car on lap number 2 of the race. There'll be a little look, but here comes the look here from Edward Shelley. The best defense is a good offense, trying to attack Alex Crowe for 4th.
Going and putting as much impact, and here comes Michael up on the inside, tries to get it late on the anchor, sweeps across the nose and creates an opportunity as well. Michael Heffeldassen now needs to put the hammer down and get into the toe to try and move himself further up the order. This is going to be a tough time. Alex Crowe is going to need to really keep an eye on the mirrors.
Yeah, we'll take a little look here. This is Stephen Verveyen here in the number 73 Evolve SimSport car. Oh, and the tip with the dog bear car, fighting for the same piece of real estate. And that would be the reason why you've got a couple unhappy customers down there at this moment in time. Eric Smith was the driver who puts in the protest then on Stephen Verveyen's attempt to try and lunge down through. Very difficult out there it was. Now, Jesse Saarinen leading category here. Daniel Thomas having a tough lap here, has fallen behind both Esa Pulkkinen and also Trevor Vavrovsky, who is looking to fight for the title this year. So ultimately for Daniel Thomas, a tough start. He's now back to 4th, and in the middle of all of this, look who's going to have to try and get through 4th position on the GTs right now. That's Byron Kurtzer.
Byron Kurtzer, multi-South African national champion in a variety of motorsports, now having to just try and utilize a little bit of prototype knowledge as he tries to navigate through the traffic. This is where it gets a little bit hard, as you have to be patient. You have to wait for an opportunity. You don't want to go and muck around with any dices around you, but at the same time, there's no blue flags being waved. You are fighting for overall track position. Cleanly gets on by, and now will keep the hammer down all the way through, but miles back from the LMP2 field.
Yeah, and that goes to show you how tough it can be at the start of these races. And Joni Katala has already moved himself up into 12th position from starting in the pits. Wayne Hutchison will be the next car to try and chase. The only car out of the race so far officially is 1 lap down. Joshua Hampton, who I think has only just now gone back out of the pits after having a drop out there in terms of connection. So battle on 5th and 6th in category. This is Richard Cumlin trying to get by David H. Baker for position, and this is what happened to Scott Kukas then in the Mustang through the first chicane, attacking well off the exit here and looking to get that drive. But is this a case of any further troubles from there? No, he just jams the anchors.
Wonder if that was a slowdown he was battling to get rid of, and eventually just standing on the anchors to just try and get rid of the slowdown as fast as possible. Makes it rather difficult and cutting it rather fine, as we see Richard trying to keep on the power here. David will have to get defensive with the Merc. Unfortunately, side by side, the McLaren is going to have the advantage and have a lot of rotation. And it looks like David utilizing his head here and saying, listen, it's a long race. I'd rather tip back, save my tires, save fuel, and push on a little bit harder. You pull me along down the Mozon Straight.
Yeah, that's a wise head on very experienced shoulders is the way I describe David H. Baker. He's someone who drives very, very astutely and smartly in series like this, and has driven for the longest time in the Majors series, and looks to try and continue on his realm of pushing. So that AMG Mercedes will fall behind the McLaren, which is seeming quite popular out there for most of the drivers as they attack now into the second chicane out there on circuit. So focus then has certainly been found early from a number of drivers and teams. They know that they have managed to get through with minimal dramas out there, settling into the rhythm, and there is Aidan Matthias, who leads this field outright. The 502 car in from Club Texas, doing a good job, but being hunted by the two behind, because on that last lap, his 3:27.3 trumped by 0.7 of a second by Ruben Lasso, trumped by almost a second, 1.3 by Elation of Way, and a penalty has come through. It's a drive-through for Stephen Verveyen in the 73.
Is an absolute big impact for him, and a drive through at the pit lane here, 60 kilometers an hour on the pit limiter. You hear the field leave you behind. And you're going to have to then try and figure out your next way of moving through. The question is, how much damage has he got on his car as well that will need to be repaired? Or do you utilize the spare car that's around? These are all the factors that come into play. Interesting enough, though, a lot of the drivers picking the Cadillac to get the practice in for rain racing in the 24, but it might not be the strongest car in a sprint race.
Oh, look at that. Luke Mann has flown in against Jesper Eriksson, the use then of the hybrid system coming into play. And look at the fighting Austin Cobb's got to do off the middle of the corner. Just about escapes, but a third SimRace Sweden esports car joins the scene. Daniel Holmer is going to be there in the number 79, looking to pick up a couple points here as Austin Cobb now has to look behind in the 505, which looks more like SOS at the moment, because he needs help, and so too does his teammate Luke Mann, defending the line into the second chicane, leaving Eriksson and Fredriksson, the two-car tango that has been going on this season between those two, to try and really chase down and gain that place. Maybe they've not got race pace early on, but maybe they just need to settle into this race to give themselves what they need, and they will push along the straight here, will Fredriksson to Eriksson, to give a chance at Mulsanne corner, and pulling over to the outside, trying to open up the steering and attack off the exit past the golf course to Indianapolis.
And flat on the power, they've been waiting for this opportunity. They could sit and build for long enough, switch to attack a little bit further on to try and utilize a full battery. And Oscar Fredriksson's just playing a little bit of protect at the moment. Team freeze opportunity, big defense plays coming to play for all the drivers, figuring out what they can do into Indianapolis. Oscar, second thoughts around it, going to go around the outside, down into second gear, brings it back up, and it's starting to turn into a little bit of sandpit on the exit of Indianapolis.
Well, when you've got 49 cars circulating around this circuit, it's only natural that a couple are going to go wide at Indianapolis. It's a corner that is banked very much like Indianapolis, and as you go through, you are trying so desperately to avoid making any contact with the barriers. So that will be worth keeping drivers' minds focused at this point in time, as Fredriksson finds himself then in a very nice position, P6, but looking to go aggressive rather than defensive in the early goings. To keep an eye on your top three in the championship, Jesper Eriksson currently in 4th position in class. I look down to where Garen Batten is. He's a long way back down in his class right now. I'd say he's about 8th or 9th at this stage, as Tom Guest goes side by side and gets the pass done on Fabio Grassetto up into Indianapolis corner. And then Trevor Vavroski actually looks like he's going to be scoring the most points out of the championship contenders currently, but he has just dropped the place to Daniel Thomas, so he is also in 4th place.
It's a question. We're seeing a variety of cars here. It's picking the meta cars that aren't on circuit. But what would be your pick of class in car? Personally, I love the GTP BMW. It's just an interesting car to drive. Not the best looking, but the LMP2s just seem to be the more stable prototypes at the moment.
I'd actually pick GT3. I think it's the easiest cars to drive out there of the three, and you get yourself a little luxury of knowing that as the slowest car, everyone's going to work to try and get by. Joni Kattila, by the way, on that last lap was a full 2.5 seconds quicker than your leading duo right now, the two Finns of Jesse Saarinen and Esa Pulkkinen, who are there 1 and 2. So the McLaren's working as much as they can. I'm sure you'll have a little bit of char-grilled front bonnet if you get any closer than that, Essa, going up through into Indianapolis. Now to Arnage corner, 90-degree right-hand corner, but so often declared the most difficult corner on the circuit.
If you're on the inside, it tightens up quite a bit on you, and there's not much grip there, tons of marbles to deal with, so you have to try and open up the corner as much as possible. But when you're running in tow like this, aero wash is a big factor under braking as well, as you don't have that pressure on the nose. Into the Porsche curves, however, is we're going to have to go down the gears and rely on as much downforce as possible and mechanical grip to carry as much speed as possible heading into Chevrolet, getting close to the likes of the wall, and makes it rather uncomfortable for most drivers.
yeah, that is getting tougher and tougher and tougher, and they've got to be noting where they are over the course of the stint with their battles that they've got, because if they push a little bit too hard out there, and as you can see, a slowdown penalty for Jesse Saarinen, so that is going to open things up. There is another slowdown penalty in for Alex Crow at the moment through the chicane, so that will drop him behind Edward Shelley. Matthew Crisp also picking one up and has to try and serve it on the straight. The worst place to have it is in the opening couple of laps, but outside of that, you do have the ability to just lift and coast into a corner once in a blue moon, and you're able to serve down the penalty. But if you take too long in terms of serving that penalty, then you will get a drive-through penalty administered by the iRacing system. Crow now behind Ed Shelley, who's looking around, seeing Hafler Darson down the road. So this is 5th, 6th, and now 7th with Travis Walling.
Running in a beautiful train, moving themselves along. This is an opportunity for Alex Crow to start giving a little bit of lift, saving a little bit of fuel in the process, and try and get rid of a splash and dash that will be needed towards the end of the race. Last time in our international, it came down to last 40 minutes before they had a safety car to deal with, and that was a game changer for first and second of both GT3 and Hypercar.
Oh, is there dramas there for Jesper Eriksson potentially talking about the Porsche curves over the radio? So I don't think he's best pleased at the moment with the group that's there behind. He's trying to run away from them right now with Cobb and Holmer and Mattia and Ryan Walker. He's okay for the moment as Alex Crow now looks to bring himself into play with the likes of Ed Shelley still and Travis Walling out of Arnage and over to the Porsche curves. Now this is the perfect place here, the Porsche curves, to illustrate the differences between the three categories. How much speed can you take through these corners?
Always a tough one. You're going to have to go right down into 5th gear, carry the momentum through. Don't want to go too wide, otherwise it bottles you up into a very tight Porsche curves. You don't want to go too close to the wall as well, and back onto the power.
Yep, so car number 37 under review on lap number 4, it is declared. Let's take a little look, though, at what has previously happened here. So this is Scott Kukas who's going through, and this is what Ericsson will be talking about. He goes through the first part of the Porsche curve, no worries at all. Oh, and he tries to go over to the outside, and Kukas collected in that section, and it doesn't matter which way you look at it. There is as many cats and dogs as you could possibly find out right now. It's raining for Scott Kukas, who takes a second tap from Holmer.
And that is going to be a tow back to the pits. He has, fortunate enough, the use of a spare car to get him up and going, but definitely throwing him down the field, and Kukas not having the best time out in the field. He's been dropping down since the start, and that impact sure is didn't make him any better, as we do see Daniel Holmer really putting the power down and laying in the pressure as well.
Well, Scott Kukas and his cat car would have hoped to have had 9 lives, but ultimately they were used pre-race by the looks of it. Mattia in at the middle of this group, and now trying to figure out where you go. There's a crown in the middle of the road, which means that's the best place to be as the track slopes to either side as they go through. Mattia unable to get through on Holmer, but now looking to pick his pocket off of the exit and get the drive along the next long section of straight. Ryan Walker, ever experienced, watching on and seeing here what these two in front will look to conjure up. Daniel Holmer here on the wrong side of the road. It will turn into the right side of the road if he's brave through this next right-hander, because he's got to try and sit and find his line. Can't quite get there. Searches, 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 and just doesn't have the line that's there. Good move by Bart Mattia there, using the entire Mulsanne to set up that run to Indianapolis.
Absolutely great stuff, Bart. Now putting the hammer down, utilizing all the power that's available in the battery to just open up that gap, and not wanting to give any of the competition a tow, heading into Porsche curves, knowing he's going to have to be flat on the brakes a little bit further up into the Ford chicane. And it's going to be a Chevy, it's going to be a Cadillac battle all the way through, as Bart Mattia going and really running it as hard as possible. A little bit of a touch against the wall there. You can get away ever so slightly, but any more than that, you're going to start affecting the aero on the rear and taking out at least 2 or 3 kilometers out of the car in a straight line.
And that straight line speed is so vital around this track. You are spending more than 80% of the time with the foot mashed down to the floor. Fabio Grassetto looking now a little bit vulnerable. This is Matthew Crisp. Sorry, not Matthew Crisp, but behind, well, in front of him, Tom Guest. He's trying to get through. Crisp is also looking at Garen Batten for a position. 2 very similar livery cars from the teammates out there looking to try and make something happen. Guest now running through in front of Grassetto into Indianapolis and looking to get the launch off of the exit of the corner. So Grassetto happy to sit behind at this stage, but you are starting to see these little pockets starting to form. A group of 2 here, a group of 3 there. Into the pits goes Jerry Furkolb then. First stop of the day after just 6 laps.
Bit of an interesting one. You can run roughly about 8 with the LMP2s. You can run about 8, and the hypercars can run about 8 laps as well. So drivers going in, doing a bit of an earlier stop, but wondering if there's a bit of damage maybe that's come into play that's gone and thrown him, or getting rid of an early pit stop to help him get to the end.
Well, I think they can go about 40 minutes, and he's only gone 23, so that would have been about halfway, and that's a retirement for Jerry Furkolb. So he will be out of the race there and pulling the car to one side. So a real shame in that regard that his race is over and done with so early on in these proceedings. Esa Pulkkinen, though, still in control, but here is Jesse Saarinen, who will move back to the inside as they are trying to work together in the draft. The yellow and the orange indicates that they are very similar in terms of their design, and there you go, there's the move, and look at the car control that is needed to immediately pull into line and immediately start bump drafting again.
And you've got to make sure that you get it absolutely square. You don't want to be on the right-hand side or the left-hand side, otherwise you're going to tip the car and land into further issues. At the same time, you don't want to score a 4X by having any major impacts as well when you're trying to bump draft the competition. Jesse having to really put the hammer down. Luke Mann, however, going on the outside, looking to try and box in. Unfortunately, that got a little bit too close for comfort as Jesper Eriksson defends the line. Did not want to be boxed in behind the GT3s. He's stuck on the outside, but manages to get the hammer down in towards the likes of Indianapolis. Going to have to fight it out. Luke not backing down from this fight. Wants to get past Eriksson as quick as possible. Stands on the gas, a little bit of a loose rear on the exit as he tries to push that frantically a bit harder. You can see how the GT3s are getting swamped by our hypercars.
Yeah, this is the first time we've seen them really go through the category, and the likes of Matthias, Holmer and Walker there, they had to split either side of the GT3 traffic as they went on by. I believe it was Wayne Hutchison that they had to try and clear as they went through. Walker not happy in the, I believe, satellite racing colours there to go through on Gary Thomas, and the amount that he has to wait, it's going to cost him the tune of about 2 seconds. And out of the race is Aleix Nquay. Nquay is out, so he's come together with some traffic, is it, by the looks of it? He's down in the pits, so something's happened to Aleix Nquay.
That is an absolute nightmare, considering he was on such top-notch form, as Daniel Holmer gains a position of going and flying past Matteo, just unfortunately clipping the curb, going and putting a wheel on the dirt, lost that drive. Oscar Fredriksson also getting into the Mustang. Not ideal circumstances for both cars, and that just changed the entire ball game for both classes of GT3 and hypercar. Oscar's going to have a bit of a pain.
Well, this is what happened to Aleix. It's all on his own there, through into the second chicane, catches a massive amount there of grip trying to correct a slide, and he backs it through, and a hefty hit into the tyre barriers there that would have demolished the left rear suspension, and that is that. Fredriksson on the brakes, I think locked it up, trying to keep it slow. It's a warning there for car 37 for avoidable contact, but Jesper Eriksson continues on. Claude Belval was the driver who got turned around in that incident. So Belval in the 56 with work to do to gather back up. He's now behind the light, or I would say to the back of category is where Belval is. Joni Katala now up to 5th place and has taken legitimately not much time at all. Richard Cumlin's had nothing to really go about it. Katala is head and shoulders above each and every driver at this moment in time with the pace in that McLaren.
Busy enjoying it at all times. Doesn't want to have any of the hypercars pushing him off the racing line, however. You can see making it fairly easy to get by, but at the same time not compromising his pace. Will move back to center, play a little bit of Pac-Man, and this is actually quite helpful for GT3s as you pick up about 5 kilometers difference by running on that center line the whole way through. That's what a lot of the GT3s will be aiming for, as Catalai getting a little bit uncomfortable with the hypercars darting around into the bottom of Mozon. He manages to get the pass back, but now it is turning into a fight around him.
Daniel Holmer trying to run away because it's Cadillac v Cadillac right now. Bart Mattia pushes along the main part, thinking about, do I want to go and make a move, or are they thinking about what's further along, which is Oscar Fredriksson and co. They are trying to gap themselves away from Ryan Walker at this moment in time. They are managing that here on the 8th lap of this race. I reckon they can go to about lap 15 overall, and that will give them some confidence to move forward and say we're on a very nice strategy out there. So for car 549, which is Luke Mann at the moment, there's an incident on lap 8 under review, which will be the incident into the chicane. But for the moment, Mattia happy to follow in the tracks of Holmer. If he feels he's quicker, he can use him to run away and escape from the cars behind.
And at this point, you're going to be switching your mode to build. You want to try and generate as much power into that battery, get it as close as you can to 100%, so you can go back onto that attack without any problems.
And problems are what we're trying to avoid. Grassetto again remaining rather close here, trying to hold that station and go past Tom Guest, and that would be a move to go up in category to 11th position overall. And this is where you find that there are drivers with different philosophies out there. Are you looking to just make the moves because you can make the moves, or are you sitting back, saving a bit of fuel, trying to get an extra lap compared to your competitors to get that leapfrog and spend less time down in pit lane?
And it's easier to follow than lead in the slipstream. If you're going and punching a hole for the competition, you're going to have to worry about when are they going to pull into the pit stop, looking behind you continuously. With it, by following, especially this early into the race, you can have the option to do it at your leisure versus at going and fighting with discretion.
So discretion is the better part of valor, which is often put together, as we will take a little look here at what has happened with Claude Belval. This was exactly what happens going up. So you can see Oscar Fredriksson, he's trying to find the pivot. Belval takes a natural line in, but I think Oscar Fredriksson just locks up the rears, and Belval ends up being a bystander.
Belval just unfortunately can't go and get all sorted out, and naturally GT3's understeer, so you want to keep on your racing line as much as possible. For the hypercars, you want to clear the traffic, but you've got to be patient at those moments. Knowing that there's GT3 there, try and brake a little bit earlier, give a little bit of space, but at the same time you can lose up to 2 seconds easily into the Dunlop chicane up against the competition that can just power their way through, hit attack mode, and get a better run towards Mozon.
Yep, Fabio Grassetto remaining with him at the moment as he tries to stay close and make some moves. There have been changes on this lap. Alex Crow's dropped a couple places then, so behind Travis Walling now, and will have more to do, the 6:02. There's your leader overall. Aidan Matthias has had a slowdown on this lap, so the gap's come down between him and Ruben Lasso to now just 3.7 seconds out there overall. Lasso from Club Iberia out there at the moment, and Aidan Matthias piloting the 502 from Club Texas. Few drivers deciding that they want to go today with a spotter. Richard Cumlin is one of them. Lee Stewart is there helping out Richard at this point. Luke Mann's got Wyatt Roberts helping out in the ears. Felix Ruppert has Lars Kirschbaum for help in the 522, and that will be all there is in terms of those going about and working. Ericsson in third position with the warning, but the two teammates behind of Cobb and Mann, who are trying to figure out how they stay in range with the championship leader.
Taking a look at the lap times so far, Jesper Eriksson keeping within the 3:27 to 3:28 mark despite the traffic. Aiden, however, has been sitting with the 3:26 to high 3-minute 26. So he is on a proper charge to try and get away early on. Because at the moment, as you start to have a little bit of tire degradation, you can start fiddling with the anti-roll bars inside the vehicle to mitigate that. Where in the LMP2s, a little bit harder. You can start working on your throttle shaping to help you out and carry the momentum through to save a bit of fuel. If you're going on engine mapping 1 or throttle shaping, you'll have 1 as more power underneath you. But if you go to, I'd say, linear 2, or be the throttle shaping 2, you can save up to half a litre.
Yeah, you certainly can. So Tom Griggs leading in LMP2, 5.6 seconds to the good on Felix Ruppert in second position, to Jevke Karstaker in third position. That gap is up to 13 seconds at this point. Ruppert looking to give that chase, and for those who of course do want to join the Majors Series and get their opportunity, they can head over to majorseries.com and get themselves signed up in for the series. It's one of those series where you race something different each and every time you go out and battle and race in. I think that's what gives this series its uniqueness. It's one of the few series that says we race year round and we'll challenge you on every single part of the car.
Well, if you think about it, round 5, they had to deal with Indy cars and going around in ovals, and now switch it out to Circuit Le Sarthe here in multi-class racing to battle it out. It's a huge change from formulas to hypercars to GT3s, but at the same time provides so much bang for buck, and racing throughout the year always gives you a big smile on your face as you battle your way through in solo races. It's not team racing here, despite majors. Oh, big impact with one of our GT3s into the wall.
Michael Hogg is the driver in the wall, and there were a little bit of fears about where he was going to go. Travis Walling had to try and commit one way or another, and Michael Hogg takes a hefty shunt into the barriers, and I think he's going to have to tow the car because it's not safe to drive back. So we'll take minimal tow time, but crucially is going to lose out in terms of the fast repair before going back out again. Hafler Darson again remaining close as they battle on through. Warning again for car 37. That's Jesper Eriksson again for serving a slowdown on the racing line on lap 6. Got also car 549 Luke Mann under review for lap 8 still, but for the moment Jesper Eriksson is not having much luck with the stewards. That's 2 warnings now for 2 different incidents.
One microscope you definitely don't want to be underneath is our stewards, and when they eventually give a penalty that comes out, it is going to be hitting you like a center block. This is a replay of Michael Hogg, however, on the top right, keeping it all together, just trying to manage his way through, sees the LMP2s in his mirrors, and unfortunately no space to go, a little bit of contact and bang into the wall. Huge impact. Front suspension gone, rear suspension gone, and temperament definitely gone.
Yeah, you lose a whole amount of time and patience when you are trying to lap cars that are slow in the category, and Michael Hogg just found himself wrong place, wrong time, and the issue befell once there. Saarinen and Pulkkinen then working together still at the front of this field. They are trying to build the gap here to Daniel Thomas, and over that last lap they were certainly able to extend it out by 0.8 of a second. Trevor Vavrovsky in 4th position, and Joni Kattler is not a million miles miles away from chasing that down at a rate of 3 seconds a lap, and on that last lap ran about 1.2 seconds quicker than the race leaders. So for Pulkkinen and for Jesse Saarinen right now, they've had a moment in the sun, but they know that the ever-looming threat that is there behind is another Finnish compatriot in Joni Katala.
So these two have kept it very, very clean with one another. Michael Hogg going and trying to get himself into pit lane and not able to get in and out of the box. Seems like he's got major damage to the car still. Oh, there we go. Now exiting the pit lane after the contact and trying to find the box by the looks of it.
Well, out there at the moment, that is going to be enough for Michael Hogg to jump on away and keep himself out and going. 13th in the class at the moment, with retirees including Scott Kukas, Jerry Furcom, Aleix Nahui. Those are the 3 cars out of the race as they currently stand. Austin Cobb remaining close here in 5th position, and Luke Mann is there in 4th, looking to try and hold on to that place. They are bringing Oscar Fredriksson with them, and that will be the worry, to have one of the Sweden SimRace esports cars there behind, wanting to hunt and gain a little bit of a place. Remember, these points are split 3 ways, so if you're first in GTP, LMP2 and GT3, you are scoring maximum points, and then your points haul goes down and down and down by position in your class. It's not that they're all in one class, it's not that you get more points for being in the faster car, but at least for the moment, Luke Mann happy with Austin Cobb, and they've got to try and figure out a way right now, the Adrenaline Motorsports cars here, to figure out how they are going to attack this race, because Jesper Eriksson has already tuned out to the tune of 6.5 seconds at the moment, and they're trying to keep the car behind at 1.1, Oscar Fredriksson at bay. They've got to get it to at least 1.5 seconds, and they're going to try and figure it out by pushing along the straight.
And look, their lap times are actually slower than Oscar Fredriksson, so Fredriksson does have the advantage there. If he can stay within the train, he's 0.1 of a second slower than Austin Cobb, who's getting held back by Luke at the moment, as Grassetto in pit lane, LMP2s getting sorted out.
That is a safety car that has just been called, and they are determined by the amount of incidents in server, I do believe it is. So safety car gets thrown, and that will put a spanner in the works. So we've got a number of cars down in on the pits at this moment in time. So everybody has jumped in looking to try and make a pit stop, but it now puts a really interesting dynamic into this race, because you had in the likes of Tom Guest, who was in the pits, Eric Smith in there, Grassetto, Cameron Brown was there, Garen Batten. We were very much in the LMP2 cycle as the safety car came out.
An interesting part now is you're not allowed to pass your same class cars, but you are allowed to pass the GT3s, or you're allowed to pass the LMP2s if you're an LMDH. That being said, until you get onto the train, then you're going to have to wait it out and hope that you get the wave by, just carry on the fight. But this has closed up the fight. LDMH cars all bailing into the pits to get it all filled up, get going. New set of tires on the cars.
And now you start looking around at who has got what, and I'm looking at car number 502 that has a black flag penalty assigned to them, and that would be for, that's been cleared out there at the moment. So obviously how that has gone about, it has gone and been cleared. So I think that was just a mistake that has been brought in. Matthias is okay. He's engaged his limiter out there on circuit, and so everyone is going to have to try and wait behind. So they are going to look to bunch that together. It's going to be a really tough safety car period for these drivers, especially when they are running down in your LMDH category. And look at the swarm trying to get out of the pits there. This is a disaster for a driver like Aidan Matthias, who has stayed out there at the moment. I wonder whether he didn't have his radio on to understand that this was a safety car period that he was under at that point, because everybody else, it looks like, has come down into the pits. Lasso and Eriksson, and Holmer spins it under safety car conditions with cold tyres.
And that is the nightmare of the LDMH cars. All the prototypes are getting a little bit of a taste of what happens to have no grip, and you're going to have to keep it all together. Best thing you can do is take it out of balance, put it into build. Don't get any more power to those rear wheels or even to the front. Try and limit the amount of power going to it. Keep yourself in order, because you're taking the life out of the tires every time you slide, every time you do a burnout, every time those tires lose grip through the corners.
And what we'll be telling as well is that you're going to be on a different cycle if you're Aiden Matthias now. Everybody else is going to be in position. Jeff Schmeier and co in. So all of the GT3s are now in the stops, doing their stops right now. The likes then of Rupas and Griggs Case Taker is then going to also, Cast Taker is in the pit as well. Hafler Darson has jumped in. Matthew Crisp down into the pits too. So everybody is down in the lane. Everybody is trying to focus on what they can do, and it is a completely free pit stop as they go. One car has stayed out though to take the race lead and some time out there, and it's car 7. It's Gary Thomas who is going to be the only one there from Fusion in the Ferrari who decides, you know what, I don't want to pit. I'm going to be happy with where I'm at. I can save some fuel, I can save my tyres, and I know that I can go a little bit longer out there than some of the others because of it. So an interesting call here from Gary Thomas in the number 7.
Can't do the old style. Remember with the GT3s where you could hold the clutch in a little bit and just let it coast all the way through? Unfortunately, you can't do the same. But when you're on the pit limiter, like what we got Aiden Matthias, who's leading out the field, he will be able to pull the clutch in and actually save a bit of fuel under the pit limiter with the car. So this is always an interesting factor. Due to you going slow enough, you can engage that, save a little bit of fuel, but it is a big risk. I've got a question for you, Jake. If you're looking at it 60 kilometers an hour around Le Mans, what do you think the lap time is going to be when they cross the line, a full lap on the pit limiter as a virtual safety car?
12 minutes.
Incorrect. 40.
Oh, I was only 2 out. Give me some credit there. But for the moment, it's not about the speed that they're running where the problem lies. It lies in your category right now of LMDH and to an extent LMP2 of the tyres going cold. Because they will go absolutely stone cold dead. They can't weave the tyres to garner any more heat into them. And because of that, there's going to be 4 or 5 laps where everybody is going to look like Bambi on ice.
And with looking at the dashes of those LMDH cars and LMP2s, you're going to be sitting at 30 degrees tyre temperature. Your pressures will go down to about 1.4 psi. Now, the best thing for these cars is to get up to 1.6 to be able to get the run. And 30 degrees is definitely not where you want to be for any of the prototypes. The GT3s, however, only have to worry about that in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, can we get a look on what's just happened here with Håkan Shirt out there, because he has been absolutely clobbered by Adam Preston out there in the number 99, who I don't think realised where the train was, locked up the front, and Håkan Shirt has now got the black and orange mechanical flag. Preston got caught out by where the safety car train was.
Preston, not a usual mistake from him, and unfortunately this is what happens when you get sucked in. You're trying to figure out where everything is, but this is where a teammate is quite handy to have on the circuit. They can say, all right, we're entering into this corner, into that corner, but also race control is doing that as well. So let's take a look at a replay of the incident.
Yep, so this will be coming down the Mulsanne, and nobody there screaming, you've got to slow it down, and Preston here gets along to this group, and this is what happens. He realizes, oh, I've got to slow down, I've got to slow down, locks up the rears and goes straight into an innocent bystander in Håkan Shirt. And just like that, it's a case of damage there for Shirt, which is going to put him in needing to use that fast repair, and Adam Preston having to wait for everybody to kilter on by before going back to speed. One of the big differences there that you can see between the speeds, where you can go up over 300 kilometers an hour on the straight, but then you've got to get it down to 58 kilometers an hour. So that tells you all you need to know. All drivers would have known that they're under caution procedures right now, so have no reason to be going that quick, especially when you're joining up the back of the train.
But this is why the rule of move to the right-hand side off the racing line happens, and it's something that's been brought into real-life motorsport as well, as incidents like this do land up happening, especially with motorbikes. So it's to move off the racing line. If someone's not aware, they can get past the train, slow it down and bring it back. In that sort of moment, he could have just slowed it down, bring it down the gears nice and gently, but that sudden fright came into play. I just feel terrible for both drivers. Unfortunately, it is something that turns out to happen fairly often when you're not used to safety car conditions, which is unique here to the Majors series and to the Majors as a whole.
So Aiden Matthias looking to get clarification here on what his pit stop cycle will look like as he leads the field. So he still has to hold the limiter, but as he comes into the pits, he can take his service, but pit lane will be closed until the entire train goes by. So then that will put him in a position, and I'd assume that Aldis Putekilis will join, and I also would assume that Sebastian Jackson will be in the same boat of looking to pit, getting that service, and then joining the back of the train. So they'd have work to do. Gary Thomas not pitting is very interesting. And then, of course, you've got drivers out there who are in trouble, like Håkan Shirt, who right now Håkan is going to be looking around going, it's not my day, I'm going to have to come in, get my fast repair going. And the reason why is that front right is so exposed, where it's gone into the guardrail on the right-hand side, and that's where the damage is found for car 101.
Not ideal situations coming into play, but this is what makes endurance racing so much fun, because it's always about what's going to get thrown around the corner, the unpredictable nature, as they will have to battle it out for a remaining 1 hour and 37 minutes. Mateus, however, will be going and kicking himself, I would say, when he gets into the pits to serve his pit stop, get himself refueled and back out there. This is a nightmare situation for him, and we still have to do the class split as well, moving all the GTPs to the front, the LMP2s in between, and the GT3s at the back. So the hypercars will have to just wait it out, and this is going to be Mateus's worst opportunity to get into pit lane.
So looking at those who have gained an advantage, Michael Hafler-Darson has gone through on Jefka Karstecker for position. So that one has worked out. Jan Hilden has moved up in category along with Chris Treiber. Alex Crow behind them. Garen Batten finds himself a little bit mired down at the moment, and that becomes a very interesting game, because the likes of Shelley and co, I think, are caught on the wrong side of Aiden Matthias and find themselves a full lap down. So those drivers, I believe, like Shelley, Walling, Batten, Brown, that everyone basically in front of Putekilis now are going to be in a really good position. Putekilis, no surprises, jumps in. So too does Sebastian Jackson, which means Ruben Lasso, I believe, is going to be the driver who will take control. And every car in front should be allowed to unlap themselves and go to the back of the pack as it sorts. So they get themselves surely a little bit of help out there, but down in the pits they go, and they will look to take their service under caution conditions.
Well, it is going to be a long time for many of the drivers, and for our GTPs, they will be looking at their dashes, going and frantically thinking what needs to be done. Now with the Cadillacs, they work a little bit differently. To warm up the tires, you actually go and use the front anti-roll bars to scrub those tires a little bit harder. The BMWs work a little bit differently, where you actually want to open up and not put too much heat cycle through them, otherwise they will land up killing off a lot later. So you've got to be so careful in these moments, and it's what makes the GPs rather interesting.
Daniel Thomas, Yoni Kattler, no surprises, Hawkins Shirt's in the pits. Alex Crow is in, with Pateklis, Jackson, and Gary Thomas has come into the pits with Matthias. So they're all in there, and they will wait for the back of the train to get themselves back out again. Richard Cumlin has gone in through the pit. So too has the likes of Trevor Vavroski look to come through the pits then in that regard. And waiting right down at the back is Tom Dreiling then as one of your LMPs. They can go all the way to the line, and once the line is cleared, they can then go back up to speed. But again, this becomes an interesting scenario. So the field now will be allowed to pull away safely, and it's those cars that are in front of Lasso, Ruben Lasso, who is now your new race leader, that are allowed to get to the back of the group. This will take a while in terms of the pacing period, but it is one where I don't think drivers are going to mind too much, because they get to save so much time on their fuel that they're looking around at this stint, they're not really burning that much.
It'll take a 3 pit stop race into a 2 pit stop race very, very quickly. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. Who can save that 0.1 of a liter? It becomes more crucial during the race, as you don't want to have that splash and dash right into the last dying minutes of the race.
Yeah, so those cars that are trapped, there will be that process where they will intermingle and intersperse back together with each other once again. But of course, these long laps that they find themselves doing around this circuit, they'll be taking a bunch of time away as we focus with Byron Kutzer, who is now also given the call to go and join the back of the group. So Stephen Vervian as well, Eric Smith, Fabio Grassetto, Tom Guest, Cameron Brown, Garen Batten, Travis Walling, and Edward Shelley are all the drivers who have the ability to pull along. So now the question is, how does the field now stack in category? It will be Jesse Saarinen in GT3 who leads, followed then by Esa Pulkkinen and David H. Baker, now your top 3 as they go, with an hour, 32 minutes and 45 seconds remaining on the clock here in this major series race here in round number 6. Tom Griggs still in control of the category right now, and very happy to do so with Felix Rupert there just behind in the number 522 car, currently second in that category, as we focus on your leader.
Ericsson will be chomping at the bit to get racing and get underway to pass Ruben as quick as possible, knowing Ruben's pace, knowing that Ruben can become a brick wall, and with Luke Mann going to be chasing him down as well, he can't take his eyes off the mirrors soon as we go back under green. And this is going to be a tough time. Ruben, however, will have to try and generate as much heat into the tires as possible to pull away, not to get fouled up. If he lands up losing a bit of time, he's going to be pushed right back into the field and also unable to utilize all the power underneath him.
Yeah, so this becomes a case of all these drivers now being desperate to go back out, desperate to run, and Edward Shelley actually being very clever in this scenario, using the pits to try and go around, get a cheap pit stop while rejoining the back of the field to have a lapse advantage on those who are around. And Shelley is followed in by Garen Batten, for example, who is up there in the championship. Cameron Brown will jump in. Tom Guest won't, will stay out. Fabio Grassetto will also dive down into the pit. So I like this call, actually, from drivers who want to jump into the pits. They'll sacrifice 3 or 4 places by doing so, but in doing so, they will have an advantage when it comes to green flag pit stops when we get back to running.
To going and measuring out your pit stops, this is also where it's handy to have someone back in the pits calculating your fuel, saying, right, we're going to need about 27 liters towards the end, try and save a little bit, let's go and pit a little bit later, utilize a bit of a run. But at the same time, these drivers can build up just a little bit more heat into their tires to get going.
They certainly can build up that heat. They can now generate that with fresh tyres that have come out of the pits, and they will be alert to where they need to join, because the pacing line is on the Mulsanne, which is about half the circuit, but they are going to be running up. It's the second part of the Mulsanne which they will catch, so into that second chicane where the group now finds. So for drivers like Travis Walling, for example, they are going to be jumping up onto that in the not too distant future, and so driver like Sebastian Jackson, for example, will be the first. You can see the train in the distance and how quickly they will catch up to the back of it, and they will have to just lift off here in terms of pace, allow themselves to repatriate to the back of this field, and then that will give them the opportunity to go there. Long caution periods, but that's the issue that you find when you've got a long lap. There's no, I would say, easy way here in this one, Stephen, to go and get this style of process, which is sometimes known colloquially as an IVRA pit stop or an IVRA safety car, because that's what the IVRA Endurance League, I believe, put into play as their tried and tested method. It's very similar to that, so it does take a little while, but it will get drivers into the right positions as and when they need to.
I'd take my hat off to race control, considering we've got two splits in the European side that are going and working their way through, ensuring drivers are in the right place. They will then do the class splits. There is a lot of work behind the scenes for race control to ensure everyone is in check. And for drivers, this is a rather unique opportunity to go and experience safety cars. Many of us just tend to put the hammer down in officials, and that's about that. When you start bringing in safety cars, it brings in a new dynamic of racing, a new dynamic of temperament that you're going to have. And also, when are you going to be able to get it off a line? This is now a rolling start yet again, and resetting the entire pace.
Yeah, so you're now starting to think about where you need to be and who needs to be in the right position. I believe everybody is pretty much now together. Lead lap then for Griggs and Rupert and Hafler Darson, who are all there, 1, 2, and 3. There is Jesse Saarinen, who we focus on at the moment. Had a very nice start, actually, to this race. Was able to work very well with Esa Pulkkinen. And so, as such, I look at those two, and they've done a really good job of managing what they need to in this race. The only threat that they've got is going to be the one that they've had all day long back in the pack. The 535 of Joni Katala is always going to be the threat for all of those drivers, and with the way that the car is coloured compared to those at the front, I think Joni Katala is a very known quantity.
Got a question. Drivers right now are going to be trying to keep their eye back into the race. This is always a time at 60 kilometers an hour where you start looking at the trees, the birds. You start going and looking around saying, okay, well, didn't notice that part of the circuit. Maybe you're starting to feel a little bit hungry. Your mind starts to drift off and will catch you out at the start. Let's see who's still keeping sharp and focused come the start of this race, well, the restart of this race, or who's those that are going to be worrying about what they're going to have for breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
It is one of those where you spend so much time going at what is under the national speed limit out there, so that is going to be very alert for those drivers. We got race control giving as much direction as possible. Mike Ouellette currently leading the race control out there with this safety car that is going on through. Brian Scrivener immediately onto the radio saying, hey, please don't forget me, I'm 1 lap down at the moment, and we are getting the lap down process going on. So Michael Hogg, for example, will get the lap back, and that'll be to go from 2 laps down to 1 lap down to join Claude Belval. It might actually be a very good thing as well for Joshua Hampton, for example, in the number 89, who lost that lap, remember, by having a disconnect early on in the race, may have just been given a life.
Absolutely. Now I've got a question. Go and see a little bit into your musical knowledge. Baby Metal, what do you think Michael Hogg's busy listening to right now as he charges around Lamar?
Give me chocolate by Baby Metal.
Give me chocolate. I would say more Papaya. It's that excitement, that get going, get going. I think, but maybe chocolate would work.
Oh, I see you are a connoisseur of baby metal as much as I am a connoisseur of baby metal. Look at that. A team that we both love out there at the moment. And Michael Hogg saying it is hashtag not a cult out there at the moment. You can tell it's not a cult because it says so on the banner. We are not a cult out there in this team and look to try and go through. But I tell you what, you get all sorts of teams with all sorts of reasons. And actually, it goes back to the GT3 where you get the likes of, say, Good Smile Racing, for example. There's a wonderful team effort out there in the Japanese side of GT300, GT500 to understand that there is so much tie and connection in all sorts of elements of music to racing. For example, I believe that we've had some Creed cars, some Iron Maiden cars in the past, in all sorts of different racing series.
We've also had Hanumiku at one point earlier in the Daytona. In the international side, there was Hanumiku busy racing, but Michael Hogg with Baby Metal has been going and teaming up. The Baby Metal cars have been racing in all three splits, from America, International, and European. So pretty much keeping themselves all in check.
Yeah, they're doing well. Brian Scrivener moving on by there and looking to try and rush on along to join the back of the pack, and a little bit of confusion on what's taking so long. So Jesse Saarinen was on the radio, hold tight and listen to instructions. I think all of these drivers want to go, and I think wants to go about 5 minutes ago at this stage, but they've got to go through the process, allow all the lap cars to get back. But remember, you got 13.6 kilometers to try and get back to. So effectively, imagine that, to go from what is essentially your town to the next town and a little bit more is how much you've got to try and chase back to get into position. So those drivers will look to get into position, and they will need to be on the back to make sure everyone's got a fair opportunity to go and race from the same level playing field.
I'm just wondering if many of the drivers are hoping that the track suddenly heats up to 40 degrees to just radiate some temperature into these tires, because they must be on ice blocks at the moment for being behind the safety car for so long, and it's going to make a restart rather tricky. They will have about half a lap of pacing a little bit quicker. About 100 kilometers an hour will be for the drivers. You'll notice the GTPs, the LMP2s, the GT3s will all start to do big weaves to bring themselves in check, but they don't want to go and repeat what we saw in IndyCar this year by having cold tires and unfortunately a brick wall a little bit too close.
13 minutes, 13 seconds there, the time from Jesper Eriksson to go around. Ruben Lasso, very similar in that respect. So those times then coming through across the board, which means we have ticked over the hour. We do have a car down in the lane, which will have to wait to the end of the pits. And it is Jefka Kastecker who is down in the pits. And again, track position for what you gain later on. Tom Dreiling is going to make the call to jump in and get a little bit of extra stop. Petekalis will do so. Vavrovsky is playing that game. Alex Crow again plays that game, and so too does Gary Thomas and Daniel Thomas. And Hulkenschert is another one who decides that he wants to be in and gets that sorted. Vivian, Ed Shelley, pretty much all the back of the field are playing the game of, well, there's no reason for us to just trundle along and lose their tyre temperature. If the tyres go cold, get a new set of tyres. They're warm again.
Well, that's it. You're resetting the heat cycle, and that makes things a little bit easier. One driver that's going to be just enjoying the drive at the moment, Michael Hogg, keeping it nice and clean, keeping the pace up, not at full race pace, however, is just trying to catch up to the back of the pack. But at the same time, this helps get your eye into the circuit and keep your eye in for the race, where the others are still trying to just not follow the metronome.
Now down to an hour and 21 minutes to go, which would firmly put it in the window, if I've got this right, for pretty much every category, heading towards one-stop territory between now and the end of the race.
Here's gonna be an interesting situation. Safety car sticking out a little bit longer can either help you or hurt you in your pit stop strategies. But this is why we love endurance racing. You start with plan A, you throw it in the bin by the start. Plan B was when you got onto the grid, you throw that into the bin. Plan C, you've got rid of in lap 1. and now you're on plan Z1 to be able to figure out what you're going to do.
Now we're going to go into class realignment here. So for all those who have pitted, they are now going to bring themselves together. So for all cars, they are going to move over to the left-hand side of the circuit, who are in the in GTP. LMP2 and GT3 stay on the right, so that will put the classes back together again in that regard. So that will be a case of move on through, and then control will be with those the likes of Dreiling and Pateklis. There will need to be a bit of a slowdown for those who are still carrying on at a normal racing speed. Drivers like Jesse Saarinen, for example, are going to have to slow to allow them to go forward and back into pace. So I think this is going to be a very awkward moment where you've got 4 or 5 cars that can't clear because they are stuck to pit limit speed. So the likes of Saarinen and co are going to have to lift off slightly and allow those cars to slow down, or they're going to have to, which would be the easier option, make that lead group speed up slightly to make sure that that clears.
Come pit limiter for half a second just to bring the field up ahead. Then they'll need to get the LMPs. But this is going to be an interesting one as the whole field starts to concertina, and you've got to be spatially aware of your car and the competitors around you, because it's very easy to go and have a bit of nose and bumper damage in this point as well. So you're going to have to just keep it all together, take a breath, and just wait for the opportunity. And when race control says, all right, time to move forward, and LMP2s will be able to get themselves going.
So the increase in pace is now up to 80 miles an hour is now allowed. So they will now be able to go slightly quicker out there, and I think they'll now start to look to do exactly the same here with the LMP2 category. So that will allow them to move on by, and they're going to have to navigate the chicane to go and get themselves through. So the likes of Hafler Darson going through, Matthew Crisp here will move on by through. Chris Treiber is also going to be another one who tries to go through, and now they are trying to weave and get temperature in those tyres. They will have a bit of scrubbing in those tyres by the amount they're going to be weaving along this run, but it's a case of how much can I not scrub off the tyre to still generate the heat.
Just trying to do short weaves, which is rather interesting. A couple of the bottom splits, they tend to do more longer weaving to just get themselves in check. Short weaving at least builds up lots of friction very quickly, but you're still going at a slow pace. That is going to drop off. Is there a point to putting the tires through a major heat cycle right now, or just taking it a little bit more easy at the start? They're going to be sitting at about 1.4 on tire pressures for the GTPs, and last thing you want to do is go and put any more impact. This is where you switch it to build mode on your engines as well. For the Cadillacs, it would be red 6 on the dashes to ensure you're not going to use any of that battery power when you get back on under racing conditions.
I would assume then we would be back to racing conditions at the end of the lap. So I think that that will bring ourselves back into position and move into the second phase of this race. A good opening foray of driving then, and pace now starting to build up then a little bit more as they go out to what is 190 kilometers an hour by the looks of things here for Ruben Lasso. So they are now allowed to move on up and try and build that speed, keep themselves with that pace level, and to say, yes, we do need to build that tyre level up, because there will be a case of surely now going back to green this time by.
Gonna have to gently bring the pace back up. For GT3s, however, this is going to be an interesting time, as the likes of Senarin and Potulkin are going to be on top of one another, with the likes of Baker pushing as hard as possible to get on by. Drivers will have to be aware of it. Griggs, who's been on a constant drive up through the field, will need to be well aware of everyone behind him. Likes of Rupert will be giving it as much as he can take, with the likes of Halfel Dawson hoping to get on the inside, get the passes done early on, and try and break away, as he knows the drivers behind him are going to make things rather difficult if the door is left open.
For Ruben Lasso, It's the championship leader behind him, the form of Jesper Eriksson, and that number 37 that has been warned twice in this race already, there in second. Behind that, Luke Mann, Austin Cobb, Oscar Fredriksson, Bart Mattia, and then Ryan Walker, who is in position number 7 overall. A gain of 11 places in this race. It was at the line for Matthew Crisp. That is going to be a gain of 7 that he sits with at the moment, and many a driver now wants to put as much as they can in at this stage. For Lasso leading at the front, I would say have a very good look at Jesper Eriksson and at Luke Mann, at how aggressive they want to be off the start. You've got the orange and the purple there of Olympus colours there for Ruben Lasso. But now here goes the opportunity that's needed here. Drivers now looking at this new start, and Stephen, I would not want to be in a GTP on this restart.
Unfortunately, I was, and it turns into a rather interesting situation. You don't want to power out in first gear. You want to leave it in second. For Ruben Lasso, the pressure's on. Slows it down to 50 miles per hour, knowing the competition right there. Jesper Eriksson is going to keep nice and close. You have to be 0.3 of a second in the train with one another. Nothing too big as you continue on before you get going, and you're only allowed to overtake once you cross that start-finish line.
Yeah, and once you can, it will be a chance to say back to running. And so now the patience factor is there. They have done all this work to put themselves into position. We're now down to just an hour and 13 and a half left in this race, and you can see the way that Jesper Eriksson now tries to just pin and poise and wants to just launch as early as possible. The group's all there together. Watch out for the LMP2s actually being quicker than the GTPs on this restart here, because they're so close. They might start overtaking, and they have every right to do so. Back onto the power they go, and they will be underway as they get themselves sorted. So Ruben Lasso with the clearance drives on away. Eriksson in second, and immediately troubles for Austin Cobb.
Got on the power, clipped the curb, and that's all she wrote as the LMP2s come by. The LMP2s will leave him, and also the GT3s will be on the back of him. The tires will have dirt plus ice cold. This is going to make life a little bit difficult, and not the start that Cobb wanted to deal with. As we do see, this is Richard Kumlin getting into the pits and getting himself sorted out. Oh, Stefan Verwey going and landing up with a spin and swallowed up by the GT3 field.
Vivian in trouble, and so too Sebastian Jackson, who's just gone around. Changes then as they look for the race lead. Jackson into the wall as he's gone by over at Tetra Rouge, but for Jesper Eriksson right now, fueling on the straight with Ruben Lasso. Who's the bravest on the brakes? It is Jesper Eriksson who gets that move, goes into the race lead, and I look behind on the straight from Luke Mann, who was weaving like crazy to get heat into the tyres, and is going to do so again.
Just doing everything possible.
Oh, Matthias straight on.
Matthias going straight on. It's a bit of a mistake and not going to work out for him. But drivers will be utilizing brake migration. They'll be utilizing the front and rear anti-roll bars to stabilize these LDMH cars. The LMP2s will just be trying to generate any form of heat possible to carry on. And that's why those cars can also provide their own challenges.
They absolutely can, and they've got to be up to speed. This is what happened to Vivian then. Up through the right, then into the first chicane, looking down the inside and just loses it over the curve with not enough aerodynamic grip going over the top of the car. So easy to happen, and so it happens quickly out there. Griggs has got a clean start ahead of Rupert there in second, and Hafler Darson with Matthew Crisp behind. Teammates third and fourth, with Jan Hilden fifth and Travis Worley in sixth position. This was what happened to Jackson off of Tetra Rouge, just losing it, trying to put the throttle back down, not having much ease in that regard.
Unfortunately, holding it even in fourth gear is difficult. Adam Preston, however, giving as much as he can to try and keep the car going down into eighth, making their way into Indianapolis. This is where it gets a little bit tricky for the prototypes to keep it in check. As we take a look, this is Tom Drayling, unfortunately, also getting it all out of shape. Runs out a bit wide and into the marbles, catches the wall. That is left front suspension damage. I'm going to be having a little bit of a rough time getting it back to the pits.
Yeah, that's going to be tough, and you don't want to be dealing with that sort of issue early, as Cattler now looking for fourth and potentially third as well, as you've got there Jeff Schmeier, who lets that one go, and David H. Baker's looking for a way through. Car is slow in front. It's Jackson again who's putting up smoke going down through at Indianapolis corner. So we'll take a look at this as they now go, as Cattler waits and waits and waits, trying to pick up that. Oh, huge spin going into that section. How's he kept this one out the barriers? I don't know. Goes in. No, he does nose it.
Unfortunately, Indianapolis, known for picking up front bumpers, front, well, aero, everything that you can. Unfortunately, losing it through the right hand as the car bottoms out. And you have to be so careful. If you're just a little too far on the brakes, trailing it in, it will snap underneath you no matter what you've got. GD3, LMP2, LDMH, it will hurt on the way. And as soon as you catch the dirt, slide across, no grip. All you're doing is just cadex braking and hoping that the wall is just that little bit further away.
The composite performance car of Trevor Vavrosky looking every way in that McLaren to try and find a pass. Not going to get there through the Ford chicanes and the rear cordon back onto the circuit here. So for Vavrosky, it's another case of having to play the patience card. In comes Seb Jackson, no surprises there, after having a torrid lap back to green flag running. Weather conditions, the track has raised up to 29 degrees. We are in sim time now at 11:30. It will continue rising till about 20 past 12, and when the end of the race comes into full view. So there is certainly a lot that can be done to help increase those tyre temperatures as the track continues on. On board with Fabio Grassetto at this moment in time, who is looking to try and work here to get by Tom Guest. Not going to be close enough this time through the first of the two Mulsanne chicanes, but now will need the launch off the exit.
He braked a little bit early, but just before the 200 meter mark, gone and bled off the brakes also a little bit early, let the car coast into the corner. This is saving him a bit of fuel in the process, not attacking as hard as he would like, but at the same time, just applying enough pressure. So maybe Tom makes a mistake. Grassetto once again coming off and just coasting it into the corner, not wanting to have that pressure on the front disappear underneath him in a difficult situation.
Oh, for the race lead, a mistake down at Mulsanne corner for Jesper Eriksson. Ruben Lasso here is going to try and make sure that he lassos his way up to the race lead. Now around the outside, what a hold. Jesper Eriksson has the bravery of a lion as he goes through. That was so important to hold on to that position, because Lasso there was looking around thinking that one's going to be mine, and the answer is going to be, yeah, it's Eriksson's, it's not yours, Ruben.
Kudos to both drivers. The aero wash coming off both those Cadillacs could have made life a little bit more interesting, as Travis Whirling trying to keep himself in check, following one of the GTPs through, and will go late on the anchors, sweeps to try and defend, goes out a little bit wide, has to give a car's width, late on the anchors through Indianapolis, and just not able to get on the power early enough.
Jan Hilden tagging with Travis Walling as they went through toward Arnage corner. They've got Chris Treiber now, who's looking to try and pick one up, heading into the Porsche curves. Walling's giving just enough slipstream there, as there is the cockpit hatch camera as we look on back. Treiber pulls out of it, Jan Hilden holds, and Travis Walling is going to be happy with that, keeping his position well known. Eric Smith is on the back, and don't count out Jefka Karstaker, who is there on the back, as Karstaker now will see those cars in front and think, right, can I run through the group one after another after another?
Travis Walling going and giving us a sense of speed through the Porsche curves. Imagine doing it 240 kilometers an hour, trying to keep your focus up and battle your way through. You've been out on the track for quite some time. And this is where stamina comes into play as well for the drivers. You might not be feeling all the G-forces, but you're definitely starting to get dry eyes. You're starting to feel it in the wrists and in the ankles as you try and pilot these machinery through a difficult time. With the LMP cars, it is all heavy on the steerings as you fight your way through. And most of the drivers running load cells that can range from 70 kgs all the way up to 200 kilograms of force needed to bottom them out.
Ed Matthias in 8th, this for 7th to move on through, and does get the pass done on Bart Mattia to make that move. Remember, was in the race lead when the caution came out, and as such, Aiden Matthias is going to have to try and run through the group to get back to the front. So it's going to be tough work for the BMW to try and get back. Austin Cobb, another driver who's trying to make those runs. He's only just got by the LMP2 leader in Tom Griggs.
Now needs to aim at climbing back onto the LDMH field. Tom Griggs going to utilize the slipstream to try and break away from the likes of Felix Rupert. Tom Grayling also needing to battle his way around. Will have to really focus on entering those corners a little bit better. He has to get past the likes of Felix and Tom and not lose out too much time and get swallowed up in this LMP2 field.
Now, no surprises here. Adam Preston, after the contact with Håkan Schurt in the pit stop cycle, is going to have to come in and serve a drive-through penalty for avoidable contact under safety car. So for Adam Preston, that will be an extra added time that he will have to deal with in this race. Focusing on Crow, Alex Crow, at the moment, looking to try and chase down to Jepka Kasteka, who is there in front in 9th, both trying to get by Eric Smith. Door is open, there goes 1. Look at that, there goes 2.
Definitely no fear on Alex Crow going into Mozon corner. Makes you wonder, how many times has he tried that and how many times has he got it wrong? But Alex Crow made the impact and now utilizing the toe from his teammate to try and catch up to the train ahead.
And while you've got that, you've got Travis Walling here trying to find an opportunity to go around, and will do on Matthew Crisp, who says nothing I can do about that one. Easy to go through as the Sim Ability car makes that pass and jumps on up and gains another out there, and that will put Travis Walling up to 4th position, eyeing up Michael Haflidarson for place. Smith off the road then, going into Arnage corner, and Eric Smith having a lot to do to try and gather himself back up after that, trying to pick the mistake up from Alex Crow, who went off, and ultimately side-to-side contact stops the turn-in.
At least there was a little bit of runoff there, and I'm sure going and just being very cautious on the brake. Edward Shirley, however, going and landing up with a little bit of close action, takes up into 10th, puts the hammer down, but also having a difficult time to maintain the rear of that car, wanting to step out underneath him, looking a bit loose. Adam Preston, however, into pit lane to get a pit stop done and dusted.
That's the penalty that he's trying to get done and dusted out there at the moment, which is administered, and now having to take that one, going down then on the lane, and you can see the clock ticking down, the big Rolex clock there on the left-hand side, as he now takes the low, meandering run behind the Michelin man there in front as he goes. Ruben Lasso has not let go of Jesper Eriksson, and as it stands here for Jesper, this is a huge haul of points that he'll be looking to pick up, because Joni Kattler has now moved up, not just into 3rd now, but into 2nd position by Trevor Vavrovsky. So now you're starting to think about, well, how am I going to score my points? Jesper Eriksson is going to be very happy at the fact that he'll be building his margin by the looks of it, going on to round 7 of the season.
And having to keep an eye as Ruben goes for the outside line. Couldn't quite make it stick, but definitely making Jesper work a little bit harder than planned here at Le Mans for the 2.4. It is going to be a big run for Ruben to try and get ahead at the moment. Switches back to more of a balanced mode, heading towards the end of the Mozon straight. I have to try and focus on getting the best exit past the cone on the left-hand side, down the anchors into first gear. A little bit of a lockup coming from Ericsson just ahead on the right-hand front.
Yeah, so you're seeing that pressure, that inside right locking a little bit, and the more that you lock it, the more you grab the same spot on the tyre. It's what normally happens. You find an imperfection there by braking too hard, and it's called flat spotting. You don't want to be doing much of that over the course of these races, but clawing up through the trees as they head over towards Indianapolis once again, and still for Ruben Lasso. It's a game of waiting, but they're about 20 minutes away, I'd feel, from them ringing the alarm bell and saying any time from now we can make one more pit stop and get home to the end of the race.
Going to be pressure as we enter the final hour. Now, Jake, I've got to ask a very good question. Imagine when iRacing brings their flat spots, have a little bit of a vibration on. Imagine how many drivers are going to have their teeth chattering while holding on to the steering wheels, especially in the prototypes where it's so easy to be done, or even in the Porsche Cup cars as well.
Well, that now is Travis Walling through on Michael Hafler-Darson for position, getting that one done on the Mulsanne straight, and look at the train behind him right now. We'll take a look at the replay as they dive on down. This is Hafler-Darson, who's got the line, got the line, got the line, got the turn in, not got the grip through the middle of the corner. Walling took a freebie. Hafler-Darson now has Hilden and Crisp and Castaker, Treiber, Crow, Shelley, Kurtzer's in there. You've got Batten on the back of that group. Wonderful group of drivers right now, and Garen Batten's the one who needs to find points.
It's all about the go, and this is why the LMP2 class is heavily favored. It is one of the more popular classes, one of the most competitive classes that you can be in. I think especially for multi-class racing like this, it has to go to LMP2 and GT3 as the more competitive classes. If you're wanting to stack your talents against some of the best in the world, definitely these are the two classes to go for, as we follow Michael trying to keep it all in check. Makes his way through Chevrolet, don't want to run out too far wide and get a slowdown as he keeps the power on. A little bit of a lean in towards pit lane before you enter the Ford chicanes.
Yeah, so now as we go, Hafler-Darson is going to have to keep everybody back at this stage running through, and it will be interesting whether Travis Walling will now break away. There is Castecker, who is who is there, and Jefka is going to try and do what he can to run through, but he's found that you got slipstream on the car in front, slipstream on the car in front, slipstream on the car in front. Not really got anything to give you that oomph to get the places.
Castecker really getting the hammer down and utilizing those major setups to his advantage. Aiden, however, is the driver I'm looking forward to in the BMW. Go BMs! As Aiden trying to get himself a little bit further up, wants to get back into that top 5. Going to be hard work though, looks towards the outside, has to brake in the inside, got it all done and dusted up into 6th. Aiden, however, needs to put the hammer down a little bit more to catch up to Daniel Holmer ahead.
Ryan was going to make him work for the inside, but the moment the inside was gathered, I don't think he was going to really work too hard on finding that position. So for Aiden Matthias, it's a case of, yeah, I'll get through easy, but Daniel Holmer and Oscar Fredriksson will be next. And if I were those two drivers, and you know that it's Aiden Matthias behind, I would say for Jesper Eriksson out there, if you want to play the team game, you're fighting with everything you've got.
To make the cars as wide as possible, especially those Cadillacs, can become a brick wall of note. For Aiden, however, he knows that he's going into two teammates. That is going to make life a little bit more tricky to slip in between them. Ryan Walker, however, has an opportunity to also get pulled along into the battle. This is a great time for him. If he could just stay onto the back, utilize the slipstream, closes the train back up, and also can bring him a bit more into the points.
Yep, so keep an eye out on that as they go through. A warning for Luke Mann for serving a slowdown penalty on the racing line. You've got to pull off the racing line in order to serve those penalties. It will give a great chance for drivers to go through. Treiber now looking like that's been a lot of places lost on this lap, going down from 8th all the way to 12th. So Batten's through. Kurtz's through, Shelley's through, so that's going to be really tough, of a tough pill to swallow, so to speak. So that will certainly not be helpful. There is Matthew Crisp, who's now back down in 7th position, trying to get back up to 6th as Jefte Karstecker has now found a position here and is looking for this one again. But look at that group. Remember how it was one long line a lap ago? Now look at how it's split up right now. It's Noah's Ark SimRacing. They're 2 by 2 by 2 by 2.
Matthew Crisp, however, wants to try and make it into a 4-class battle as Eric Smith gets it all out of shape. The dog bear goes right across. Fortunate enough, no contact with the wall, no contact with any other car, but those tires are going to be crying of note. Smith going to be counting his lucky charms at this point.
He got out there on the dirty stuff there off the racing line. The car did not want to respond, and somehow Fabio Grassetto was able to avoid any contact going through that section. Great heads-up driving there by Adam Preston as well, who saw the issue out there and waited for the incident to finish before turning in for the corner. Jan Hilden now starting to bring this one close and is going to be sat there in 5th looking at Hafler Darson saying, P4, please, as now going through to the rear corner mont and back onto the main circuit here. The Porsche Centre that is there in France on the left-hand side going through the final section. And now back out onto the main run of this track and what is known as the Bugatti layout of this circuit here, going in towards turns 2 and 3 on track, this Dunlop chicane as they go through and then going up and over the top of the crest, leading away from the natural circuit that's run in MotoGP and over to the Tetra Rouge chicane leading to Tetra Rouge corner.
Imagine getting into the top 3, battling it out. This is huge momentum as we take a look towards the majors. 24-hour coming later this month. So scoring a win here carries so much confidence into that race that has got many of the drivers quaking in their boots. Also so much confidence for the rest of the season as well, taking one of the circuits that can really make or break the championship as it's done last year.
And so with Jesper Eriksson sitting in the race lead, there is a lot of bragging rights in play in this 2.4 with 53 minutes, 15 seconds left. Eriksson still holding station with Ruben Lasso. And I wonder whether this is going to have to be a strategy game that's going to win this one outright. It's going to be a battle of who's the best on pit lane, I think, that's going to determine who gets ahead compared to the other, because look at the gaps through the field that they've now got. I look to Adrian Matthias, 327.9 on that last lap, not running as quick as the leaders, as there is Austin Cobb going through on all this Pateca list. The 666 car fighting back, heading over in towards Indianapolis. Inside line is going to be there at Arnage. You're going to have to wait, Austin, to make that turn. And Pateca list through the corner, doesn't have to drive. Brilliant work on the outside by Cobb.
Honestly, some great driving by both drivers to make it work in Indianapolis. That usually ends in tears, but once again showing the talent of the drivers out there, why we call them pros.
Absolutely. I do want to also, as you watch Jan Hilden now being pushed along the straight, look at that here at this moment in time, pushing here for Hafler Darson, and now here comes Jefke Karstecker, who moves through, gets one, looks for two against Hafler Darson, who's there on the inside. Karstecker around the outside, not there, but one place dispatched and another one to go. A one to go over to GT3. It's on for the lead, and it's Joni Kattila who is looking to try and take that race lead away from Jesse Saarinen.
It is just fighting throughout the classes. Everyone knows it's make or break now. You're past the final hour. You're going to have to get everything going. You're fighting it out for class positions. You're fighting it out for points. You're fighting it for pride. And for Karstecker running in fifth, fourth place, just within arm's reach. He's had a great run. Jan has been looking to try and capitalize every step of the way. He needs to go and get a pass done and dusted as quick as he can and not leave that door open, as Jan will be snatching to try and take that fifth place back.
He'll definitely want it. He'll definitely need it. And there is Daniel Thomas on the back of Trevor Vavrovsky, who is third in the championship at the moment. As it currently stands, he will leapfrog Garrett Batten up into second overall, but Thomas looking in that Mustang for any way by the McLaren, and it's not there at the moment. So that for composite performance is happy, but at the front, Joni Katala, remember, has been showing pace beyond anybody else in this field. He's had to come from the back of the field twice to move on up, and now going to the outside line to try and make that move on Jesse Saarinen. Not yet is the answer, but surely an inevitability.
Saarinen has had a bit of fun with the likes of Esso behind him, just pacing, but now Katala has the opportunity to put the hammer down. Both McLarens fighting it out, and really, I've got to say, for Katala, this is an opportunity to really go and put in the pain for the likes of Saarinen, whose tires will start to feel it if he keeps having to be aggressively defending, having to brake that little bit later, utilizing the traction control as much as possible. As we can see, no traction control being utilized by the likes of Katala at the moment.
Doesn't need to, has complete feel of what this car is doing underneath him, and very much dealing with a very strong scenario as far as this race goes. So I would say this is happy days for Joni Katala, exactly where he wants to be, knowing he can wait till whenever he wants. And I would suggest first chicane going on the Mulsanne might be the right place to get it done, as he follows so diligently behind. We'll take a little look at this.
As we see Aiden getting it all together, runs out a bit wide and a little bit on the dirt. That's going to make things a bit unsettled. Late on the brakes, and the car just not slowing down underneath him. And unfortunately, that is the risk you take. A dirty line on that inside makes things rather sketchy, as Indianapolis becomes more of a sandpit. Arnage becomes a little bit harder to slow the car down, especially into roughly 60 kilometers an hour.
Oh, I've just seen two cars go off the road. Cameron Brown and Chris Schreiber have come together with a bit of contact out there. I've just seen it off screen, but you've also got Jesse Saarinen still trying to hold at the front, but this is where we're expecting the pass to be made. This is where we understand it. There's the replay in the top right corner of screen. Cameron Brown, there's the lunge from Schreiber down the inside. Brown turns normally for the corner and finds there's a car still there.
Unfortunately, understeer coming into play at the bottom of the Mosan Straight happens to be a difficult place to get a pass done and dusted, and a horrible place to be on the inside if you're trying to slow the cars down, especially with the LMP2's aero wash blowing off, taking that pressure off the front nose, makes it a bit more of a difficult situation. Down the middle they go, the Mosan Straight. Jesse keeping it all together, now getting pushed along by Katala, who will aim to try go for the inside line, maybe try and get the pass done after the chicane, looking towards the end of the Mosan Straight. Go a little bit late on under braking.
So you don't want to do it too early on this straight, because if you do make the move early, there's just a complete opportunity to go and gather it back. It's not a case of you can just make the pass and say, oh, yep, done and dusted, clear your hands of it. This is where Joni Katala now will probably eye up that pass. Will it be left or right? Left or right? I think he's going to push a bit more. So he decides, I'm not really in a place where I want to do it now. Maybe I can out-strategize to make this happen. But if you've got the pace to go out there and clear, you've got the pace to go into the pit box and win this one on pace alone out there. So for Joni Katala, again, another case of waiting in behind the slipstream, looking to utilize as much of Jesse Saarinen as possible. Katala waiting under the Toyota signage then, and looking to drive over to that next corner, middle of the road that they both go. And again, Katala content.
Take a look. GTP's tailing behind is going to make life a bit interesting for both McLarens, as there's no room for error. Both drivers will have to try and keep it all together, as we see Daniel Holmer trying to hold the inside line, keeping it all together, washes out a little bit wide, and just comes back into existence there. A quick blip, and definitely for the likes of Aiden, that is not ideal circumstance to take a deep breath and just wonder where the car is. Daniel Holmer, on the other hand, now has to try and keep it all together. Aiden, however, has the opportunity to go for the attack, will look towards the inside as they make their way closer and closer towards the Porsche curves. It's going to be side by side by both drivers. This is brave, and Aiden backing out of it, not wanting to get too close there.
Daniel Holmer, very aggressive, trying to hold that place, and is defending as he should in a group like this. They will have that lap traffic car, third overall in front, Esa Pulkkinen, that they'll have to go around, and they will go around without too much drama. Leaders still nose to tail, so it's still the case of Ericsson and Lasso together on circuit and holding each other there. Lunge down to the inside. Oh, that could have so easily have been the right rear being tagged around by Ruben Lasso. That was a little nibble down at the inside, and right now it's a case of where have I put my mousetrap for Jesper Ericsson.
For Ruben, it's going to be a tough race, and honestly, you can see him getting a little bit more impatient, wanting to get that pass done, wanting to get ahead of Jesper Ericsson as much as possible, and losing out that little bit of ground as he switches it out. This is where you're going to be playing between attack and build. He is most certainly in attack mode. Quick trigger of the windscreen wiper, not because it's raining, but just to clear the screen, make it a little bit easier to see. Looks towards the inside line, hard on the brakes, and tries to bring it back. Fortunately, Ruben not having an easy time here, but definitely in attack mode, hoping for it to help him out a little bit more, knowing that Jesper is also utilizing attack mode to ensure he can protect that first place.
Well, this is what happens if you have a place where you can attack and use your deployment. Then obviously the car in front can do exactly the same. Outside line looking this time. Round the outside by Ruben Lasso. What a move, but look at this on the exit. He's thrown it in a bit deep. Oh, they lead. They lead on each other. Ruben Lasso leading with Jesper Ericsson, the championship leader. They will battle again down to Mulsanne corner, where it's Ericsson on the inside, having his angle right now of attack to say advantage me when we hit the braking zone. Jesper Ericsson then pinches through and says, I'll take that. And Ruben Lasso will drive heavy off the exit and will look to pick up this move again. Now it becomes a duel of where these two want to go, but I think Lasso's going to have to start conserving here, because that is pure build mode now as Ericsson drives away.
That was most certainly who's going to brake first, both looking at each other and looking into the whites of each other's eyes into the Mulsanne corner. Jesper Ericsson is doing everything he can to power on.
He's doing a wonderful job out there, and now that gap has built over Ruben Lasso, and there is the difference maker that you've got. LMP2s, though, remain an interesting prospect in this one. Tom Griggs leading right now, but we got pit stops. So Travis Walling is down in the pits and just leaving pits from third overall with 42 minutes to go. I think that's about as early as you can go to get yourself home. Byron Kutzer is also going to be off the lane and away, and Eric Smith also leaving the pits.
Byron Kutzer, who actually started...
Walling's around! Travis Walling out the pit, in the gravel, a tame spin.
Now it's going to have Byron Kutzer to try and get past, but the tyres are going to need to be scrubbed and bring back up. And this is the one thing, coming out of pit lane into the Dunlop corner, as we see Travis Walling late on the brakes, and unfortunately that just has the tail snap around underneath him. Easy to do with cold tires, and especially when we're going to see in the 24 hours as everything gets a bit cooler, as nighttime comes in, that's going to become more and more common for all fields and for all classes as well.
For each and every single class, the battle on for the lead in many more. And actually, we got Ruben Lasso in for the one and only stop left remaining in his race. So makes the call against Jesper Eriksson to dive down in, is joined by Aidan Matthias. It's a team decision. We'll jump in and we'll get to the end of the race this way as they try and go. Edward Shelley is in your main picture on screen right now, eyeing up Michael Hafler-Darson, who has not been a single step away from battling for the entirety of this race.
Shelley is just keeping the momentum at the moment, hoping for Michael Hafler-Darson to lose a bit of time. But we cannot count out Matthew Crisp, also keeping the pressure on behind as the train keeps going. The LMP2s not breaking up into big packs as they continue on the race. 40 minutes left in it, and it's still Kattila hoping to get the run on the likes of our leader, Saran, who has been trying everything he can to snap that toe. Kattila looks towards the inside line, though, heading into the chicane. This is going to be late on the brakes for both. Kattila just gets it done and dusted, and now takes the lead of the race. And for the first time, under full race conditions, no pit stop, Saarinen down into second place.
Jesse Saarinen is going to look at this and think, well, I held it as long as I could. Now's going to pick up the toe. The only way to get back is to throw it immediately back down the inside. Closing, closing, closing. Will it be a look to the left? Yes, it will. Joni Kattila has to leave the space. He brakes about 2 meters later and sails into a corner better and still holds it. But there's another chance yet coming along for Jesse Saarinen, and it might have to be with all this Putekelis who's going to go by them here. How clever are you going to want to be to move by? Not close enough yet is Jesse Saarinen trying to get that move done. So he's waiting still. Is there a look at Mulsanne having to go to the outside to define it, as it was middle of the road, perfect there against Kattila. He's almost pushing Kattila through and managing it. Tom Griggs, race leader in then from your LMP2 category, was joined by Felix Rupert, so both of them will go through, which will lead now to the race lead, Jefka Kasteka, who will now be thinking about, will my ability to go longer help me at my stop?
Absolutely great racing all round, and this is where it gets tricky. This is now into a full-on sprint race for many of the drivers as Kattila tries to hold the inside line. Late breaks into Indianapolis. Saarinen around the outside, no fear over the dirt, keeps the power in. We'll have the inside line into Arnage, and we'll have to just sweep across.
It's
Beautiful.
not done yet. It's not done yet, because they got the Porsche curves, and it is Saarinen on the inside, but at the moment it's half a car late to the good right now for Joni Kattila, who's trying to get clearance, but look at the side draft to bring it back here from Jesse Saarinen. Two Finns dueling here at Le Mans. Round the outside, Jesper Eriksson, race leader, comes in, but inside line works. Jesse Saarinen holds.
Saarinen going and saying thank you very much. Retakes the position, lost it in the lap, retook it in the lap, and continues on the power, but having to really take a deep breath. I think both drivers held their breath for half the lap there, going side by side in the most trickiest corners here at Le Mans.
It's a wonderful battle, and now I am very, very alert to where one driver, Ruben Lasso, is going to come out in comparison here to the likes of the Swede that goes through. Lasso through the rear cordon, and just leaving pits now is Jesper Eriksson. This could be close as they get up to speed. Eriksson, has he got enough to get away? He's already through turn number 1. Lasso's going to be a couple seconds back. He's lost out in the stop.
This is going to be interesting for Eriksson, however. He's on ice-cold tires. Lasso, however, is all up to temperature and can utilize the power underneath him. He's able to go into attack mode and push that a little bit harder to get onto the back of the running order, and we'll see if he can. Kosteka, however, keeping it all together through the Porsche curves, nice and neat, keeping it all firmly planted on the ground. Not happy about running into Chevrolet as he runs out a little bit wide there. You don't want to go too wide. That slowdown is absolutely brutal as it goes and affects you into the Ford chicanes. He dives into pit lane, however. This is going to be an interesting time where he comes out in the LMP2 field.
How aggressive do you want to be through the pits? Edward Shelley, Michael Hafler-Darson is in, Alex Crow, Matthew Crisp, Garen Batten, all of them who waited late in their stops. They've decided, right, pit party, everybody in now and get their service sorted before the final phase of the race. Brown has, I believe, got a black flag, and I would say that's unsafe pit entry.
That is unfortunate, and looks like Grosseto has actually got a bit of damage on that front right as well, as the bodywork caved in a little bit.
Yep, so not ideal for Grosseto, who is out there, so that will be tough to try and deal with. You can, I would say, deal with a few bings and bangs on the car during the pit stop. It'll be a case of getting the hammers to it, or even getting that flexi tape that's there, that racing tape that goes through, but they're all there, and that's Tom Griggs, and Griggs, I think, is going to be quite happy seeing everybody in the pits, because that is a re-inheritance of the race lead for car number 624. Has never been away from the front, but Karstecker will be in third by the looks of things leaving the pits, because second has already flown on by in the form of Felix Rupert, and so for that, it's going to be a case then of who can catch at this late phase. Rupert moving through the slow Adam Preston, who is just getting up to speed now and realizing that Tom Griggs has walked away to nearly 10 seconds.
Does show also with the GTPs and LMP2s through the corners how the LMP2s can hold their own, but it all comes down to brute force horsepower for the GTPs, and once they're able to get up to full tilt, then they can start clearing, as Michael Hafter keeps it all together, trying to get a pass done and dusted. They also trying to get the temperature into their tires and continue on the chase, not wanting going to the center of the circuit as much to bottom the cars out. They want to keep either to the left or the right versus the GT3s.
What's happened to Jesper Eriksson, because he's now behind Luke Mann out there on track? So Mann's gone through. That will definitely mean now that Ruben Lasso has gone through. So has Jesper Eriksson had a moment on circuit?
Under cold tires, he wouldn't have completed a lap, but that also brings the likes of Aiden Mateus into the fray, because he's only 3 seconds behind and will start to bring himself a little bit closer. And there's Patakis into pit lane, trying to wait for the opportunity to go back out. A long stop, however, for all this at the moment.
Bart Mattia out then along with Jesper Eriksson, and I tell you what, joining out there, Ryan Walker is going to be in the same boat as Adrian Matthias there down the inside. As Aiden Matthias goes through, he gets the jump, and lovely done on Ryan Walker, just gets the clearance. Lasso is your leader in this field, but Holmer has come out now in front of his teammate Jesper Eriksson. Oscar Fredriksson now is second position in this race. It is complete change at the front of GTP.
For Lasso, this is the opportunity to give it everything you got. Fredriksson, however, going to be standing on the second row, second place, doesn't want to back down. Luke Mann, however, has an opportunity to really push a little bit harder, try and close up that gap to Oscar Fredriksson and go for that second place. He's under a second. He can get into the toe, pull himself along. We saw how the GTPs can fight it out with their batteries, but we've also seen what happens when it all runs out. 2 seconds can be lost at the end.
So keep an eye on your levels of battery deployment, because it is a huge amount of power that's there. Mattia side by side then with Daniel Holmer, and moves by on the Mulsanne, jumping up then another position, going into fifth. The 2 cold tyre runners then making sure that they're known. Car off there on the right hand side. That's Oscar Fredriksson from second position, who's gone off on the exit there of the corner. He was on cold tyres. Luke Mann, he was trying to battle with a half spin for Fredriksson, and 3 places lost.
And that has brought Eriksson back into the fray, up into third place. He's going to be a bit happy there. Let's take a look. This is Jesper Eriksson trying to keep it all together in through Mozon corner, hard on the brakes, and locks it up as well as he drops down the order. Not an easy time, and just having those cold tires, pushing a little bit too hard, a little bit too much brakes towards the front. We'll have to play with the brake migration to try and move it a little bit towards the rear.
I wonder whether that's both cold tyres and a slowdown, the way he pulled over to the right-hand side of the circuit there. So that will be a double dose of trouble there for him, but has been able to pick a position back up once again. He's on the back of Man at the moment, but Lasso's clear. Oh, a huge slide through the corner. Oscar Fredriksson out of the frying pan, completely into the fire.
Fredriksson really going in, sliding around. And if he wants to generate heat, that's one way of doing it, but not quite the way you would like, as tyres will have a major drop-off. Ryan Walker, however, inherited that 7th position and will be happy. He's up 5 positions since the start of the race. Let's take a look at it. Hard on the brakes. Fredriksson trying to keep it all together, runs out a little bit wide over the marbles and locks it up as well, trying to slow the car down to avoid the wall. A definite run for him. And a bit of a heart and mouth moment, and it looks like Aiden as well getting a bit of a difficult time to get by.
Yeah, so just about able to scramble on by. And so Lasso, your leader, Man second, Ericsson still in third. It's then Mattia against Matthias, which is definitely not a tongue twister battle right now, 4th and 5th. And this is what happened to Patekalis coming out then of the chicane. All the rears just step out and say you can't go full throttle with cold tyres. So that absolutely put Patekalis into the wall. Gotta have Aidan Matthias on screen now, because he's side by side almost at the Teteru chicane with Bart Mattia, and one of them here is going to pull themselves in front. Whether it's Mattia or Matthias, I don't quite know just yet, but it looks like Aidan Matthias wants through on Bart Mattia.
And Matthias going to utilize everything he can, switches it to attack mode. We've seen this BMW become a formidable foe against the Cadillacs, and will it happen again? 29 minutes means he's in a sprint race. Slipstream dives for the inside line, side by side, brings it back, will switch out to balance, and now tries to carry the momentum through as he's up into 4th, 3 places down from where he started, and takes a very, very early line, bouncing over the curbs, being rather uncomfortable there.
And while all that's gone on, Joni Katela's got a lead now of 1.6 seconds over Jesse Saarinen. So he's got the clearance that's needed and has confirmed the pass, and now is trying to run away at the front of GT3 as it stands. Vavroski currently in 3rd in that category, which has started to heavily spread out in this one. Jesper Eriksson, though, is 3rd and eyeing up 2nd. Luke Mann is going to have to do a lot of defending here. The gap has ballooned out to 14 seconds at the front of the field, and is that Jesper Eriksson lifting for fuel as he goes down onto the brakes, not wanting to go and be aggro immediately out there in this one. I think he's trying to make sure he can confirm a number to the end.
Just trying to save that 0.1 of a litre that may be just enough to cross the line when you get the warning. 1 lap left in the tank. Jesper Eriksson, however, on the outside. Man will defend the inside line as they battle their way through. Going to be hard side-by-side battle, but Man, unfortunately, not able to hold that position. Looks to try and fight back against Eriksson. Wasn't able to do it. Eriksson now up into 2nd place, and you can see the likes of Aiden Matthias also gaining a bit of ground in the background.
Yeah, they are closing in, and we do have a retirement here. It's Brian Scrivener in the number 70, who is now out of the race. So the number 70 car is going to be a retirement from the LMP2 group, the most populous group out there is the LMP2s. Real shame to see that happen, but ultimately it is just the way that the cookie crumbles in that regard. So keep that in mind as Eriksson in 2nd, hunting away to try and break from Man. 2nd, still good enough to gain points. So I would say take that in a heartbeat, and there is your leader in GT3, Joni Katela, who is now clear at the front here from Jesse Saarinen. There he is in the background, and Joni has just driven faultlessly out there. Jesse Saarinen has thrown what he can out there at the moment in the driveaway.com McLaren out there, but it's just not been enough to hold and maintain that pace. As here we go with a battle, it's Sebastian Jackson that's trying to move on through and is moving through with the likes then of Garen Batten. So that is for position, but it's LMDH against LMP2s, and that is Chris versus Hilden side by side for position in class.
This is going to be a nightmare, and for Seb Jackson, he's going to have to game for the inside line. 3 wide, however, and this is also going to help provide a tow for the LMP2 cars. Down the straight they go, lining up side by side. Matthew Crisp, however, stuck on the outside line, will not be able to swing the car in as quick as he would like, and will have to yield the position. Now down into 9th, looks to try and go for a bit of a cutback though, flat on the gas, fantastic exit into the slipstream, and now waits for the opportunity down towards the Mozon corner.
With 25 minutes to go, you're sensing endgame, having to have a wiggle there with maybe contact for Matthew Crisp against Jan Hilden. Garen Batten watches on and can't afford to get caught up in someone else's incident out there, so waits patiently off the exit. Nothing Matthew Crisp can do because Jan Hilden has held, and that will mean that for Garen Batten, he wants to try and bring himself in. Gap's really close now here in GT3, so for Yoni Katla right now, they're both in the pits for their final stop.
This is going to be an interesting time. It's a splash and dash, and also who's going to be putting tires on for last 24 minutes. I don't think for the GT3s they're going to be putting tires on. They're going to just try and keep the cars going till the very end, only putting fuel in, put the hammer down, and keep on going. For Katla, this is going to be a proper run for them. Ferosky, a little bit ahead, is going to be having a big smile on his face, up 7 positions from where he started, and now leading out the GT3 field.
Yeah, but I'm not sure he's going to make it to the end of this race. Remember, each and every single lap in the category is 4 minutes, so he's 6 laps away, and I don't think he's got 6 laps of fuel in that car no matter where he looks. Here goes Aiden Matthias, this for a podium right now, and trying to move through easy on Luke Mann, who lifts for the 2nd consecutive time against a driver trying to go through. Jesper Eriksson will be the car in front, and Eriksson will be looking at this going, well, if I get 2nd, I'm happy. The one thing he won't want because of Vavrovsky is 3rd, because we expect Vavrovsky's going to have to come and make a stop and drop the places back to Katla and Saarinen.
And we know that Eriksson has been lifting and coasting as well, so he's trying to save a bit of fuel. This is going to allow Aiden to keep on the power, who obviously has more fuel in the tank versus the competition, so he is just brute forcing his way up through the order, trying to get back into the running pack, and he's only 1 position down from where he started. He ran away with 1st place at the start, looking to try and take it back.
There's your race leader, Ruben Lasso, who is clear right now, passing Stephen Verweyen to put him a lap down in this race, as we're starting to get now the LMP2s being put a lap down. That's good news actually for the LMP2 category. If they start losing a lap here, it means it's 1 less lap that they will have to deal with as they go about on circuit. 14.5 seconds clear.
It's still a long race, 22 minutes, and we know Motorsport is a cruel mistress. Whether you got Lady Luck cheering you on, or if you got Murphy standing in the pits with that number 13 spanner and that 10 socket you lost a week ago, well, it's going to all come down to who's got enough in the tank to carry on the momentum.
Lasso clear and dealing with a couple of GT3s then will be there in front and eyeing up a way to go and navigate by them, as that will be the likes then of Gary Thomas in the Ferrari and Wayne Hutchison, who is there in front. And Hutchison at this moment pilots away with his car. He's up there top 10 in the championship, but today it's a tough day for him in the office. Has just not had the pace in GT3 category, but that's okay because it might not be his discipline. He might be better when it comes to the ovals or the dirt road or the dirt ovals. No matter what format there is something for somebody, as Aiden Matthias now looks to try and close more and more and more. Jesper Eriksson is the one who needs to watch out, because here comes Aiden Matthias straight to the inside and very nearly cuts the nose as he goes on through the corner. Ericsson, nothing he can do but allow second place to drive away.
Ericsson just losing out so much time, once again putting that theory of lifting and coasting, but that has also allowed the likes of Luke Mann to get a little bit closer, and just behind them, Bart Mattea and Daniel Holmer are giving it a huge chase as well. Matthew Crisp, however, trying to defend and battle it out, drops a wheel into the dirt, and now needs to try and battle it back. So Matthew looks towards the inside line, not able to do it. Very, very tight racing in these LMP2 classes.
And it's worth noting Trevor Vavrovsky is in the pit, so Joni Katala will now re-inherit the race lead here as the likes of Jesse Saarinen will move into second. Vavrovsky leaves the box, but it's a long pit lane here, and it will be a long wait for David H. Baker, who's only just going through the Porsche curbs right now. So I would say this will be a comfortable third place for Trevor Vavrovsky as he moves down to the end of the pit lane. Saarinen is there in second, and away they go. Griggs now still 9 seconds clear of the likes of his main rival Felix Rupert, who is there in second position, but Felix here has done well to keep him honest over the course of this race.
And Tom Griggs, however, is going and battling out with Adam Preston. You can see a little bit of frustration of able to close up in the corners, and then once he gets to the straightaway, Adam Preston just puts his foot to the floor and it runs away. Once again, showing how close the LMP2s are in the corners to the GTPs in terms of drivers, and this is where it makes things rather tricky. For Adam Preston, who has had a little bit of a nightmare of a race, is just trying to circulate, keep himself going, and doesn't want to get involved in unnecessary fights. While Tom Griggs, however, wants to get that pass on the GTP. He wants to say, I've done it, and managed to move myself into the 11th position by the end of the race.
Look at the rate that Aiden Matthias is closing down the race lead. That gap now is under 11 seconds and is hunting down at this moment. Ruben Lasso here has had a little bit of traffic to go and deal with recently over previous laps. But now I'm looking around and seeing, well, what did Lasso do? A 32.4. Surely that was in traffic. Matthias did a 3:28 on that last lap. This one might come down to the final laps of the race for GCP overall.
It's going to be madness, and for Ruben Lasso, the final lap is going to be about opening up full taps to try and break away from the BMW, because he's going to be pulling the likes of Ericsson along through the order and just doing everything he can to keep going. But keep an eye, Luke Mann, don't take an eye off him. So far, did make up a bit of time to the likes of Ericsson, still eyeing out that third place, got caught out behind traffic, and will continue on to be in the mirrors of Ericsson.
Well, I want to get a little focus here on the likes then of Richard Cumlin, who is in 4th position right now. Remember that early pit stop that he took just after the safety car. That would have been a masterstroke if he can hold the fuel to the end. The issue he might have was that was with about an hour and 15 to go. And even with the best fuel save in the world, I don't see a world in which Richard Cumlin can survive with the cars that are looking to try and hound behind to take those places away late. But it's great to see him running so high up in the order.
Where you're hoping that you've got a hybrid system so the combustion engine turns off and just rely on the battery to carry you through. Unfortunately, not quite the case with these classes.
No, so it'll be the old school lift and coast that'll be there. Hafler Darson, who is still looking to battle right now. The car in front of Hafler Darson that's just gone through is Alex Crow in the 602. So pass made there. Edward Shelley is the car in front, trying to hunt down Jepka Kastecker, who is in 3rd position, was able to close on the last lap slightly. So that one is still something that could go to the end of the race, the final spot on the podium. But this for a top 5 for Michael Hafler-Darson. And for the moment, Alex Crow has got the number, and has got the number very wonderfully sorted here through the Porsche curbs. So much load through these corners.
I gotta say, Crow has been keeping it clean all race, keeping consistent in his pace. But Michael Hafler-Darson, we've seen many times before, not afraid to put his nose in and ensure that he gets you lifting off the apex. He knows how to sit in your mirrors and battle your way through. So I think for Alex Crow, it's going to be forget about your mirrors, forget about the center, the sides, all of it. Focus on the drive as Michael Dawson getting a phenomenal run out of the forward chicane and closes up 0.2 of a second right onto the back of Crow. Just not able to carry the momentum through. Will have to just try and break a little bit later, but you can see he's got the tighter corners sorted out.
Very long stop here for Cameron Brown. I don't know whether he's had to take a tow into the pits or the light, but it's a really tough one for him. Cattler clear now, 5 seconds to the good. Top 5 is still on the offing at the moment in GT3 as I look around at the likes there of those around. David H. Baker trying to hunt on down. You've got Esa Pulkkinen, who's a little bit down the order at the moment too, so starting to struggle. There is Kumlin out the pit and into 7th place, so still did really well on that splash and dash to get it away as the battles still continue out there. Lead gap here is down to 7.7 seconds, and you're starting to think as well, Rupert is now down to 7.5 seconds in his scrap right now with Tom Griggs. So everywhere you look, there are battles which are closing.
And to think about the human element comes into play as well. Drivers starting to get those dry eyes. They're getting that lactic acid build up in the muscles, a bit of a cramping sensation in your calves, in your arms, your neck getting nice and stiff as well. You're just hoping to see that flag counting down the minutes, which feel like hours at this point.
They do, and every single lap that they are running, they are hoping they can get the clearance on as we focus still on Hafler-Darson. In front of him, Alex Crow, who has been able to pull away in the 602 from Club Canada. He finds himself at Edward Shelley. In front of him is still hunting down 2.2 seconds, the gap between him and Jepka Karstaker, who is there in what is position number 3 in LMP2. That continues to bring itself closer and closer still, so do not count that out. Late on here in this race, chasing along now towards Indianapolis corner on the far side of the circuit, and really it is all about this next drive under the Toyota hybrid bridge, and now it's a case of Crow holding his station for a top 5, and we've got an investigation underway for car number 81 out there on circuit, and that will be for Michael Hafler-Darson.
Oh no, and not what he wants to have in the final 13 minutes, to be caught under investigation and have the stewards, who have been with a very fine microscope as Matthew Crisp gets it all out of shape, standing on the power and gets it all turned around. So Matthew Crisp just doing everything he can to try and get that 8th position, and unfortunately turning into a very difficult time as Jan Alden just ahead of him will not back down. He will not yield, runs it out a little bit wide to just open up the corner towards the Porsche curves. Matthew, however, is getting quite aggressive on those inside lines. He's trying to get underneath and sees that a GT3 is going to play a big factor as they make their way through Chevrolet. This is an opportunity to box the competition in, and unfortunately not to be the case. Doesn't want to be caught out, will dive to the inside line, and unfortunately just not able to get on the back of Jan as quick as he wanted to. Down from 4th to 3rd, into 2nd, into 1st, and back on the power as they leave the forward chicanes.
And look who's behind, Adrian Matthias, who wants to get through and wants to get through quickly. No further action then for car number 81. Matthias with a 3:28.8 on that last lap. 6/10 on Ruben Lasso, but only 6/10 of a second. So needs a lot more with what will surely be 4 laps to go here at the Circuit des 24 Hours du Mans as they race here in the Pays de la Loire region of France. Matthias now moving through. Ruben Lasso moving around and bringing himself onto the all-important straight right now, which is, of course, that Mulsanne run, and it's driving away here, trying to at least, the gap now down 6.6.
Putting a big impact. Ruben's going to be happy with this one. Walking away with the win will be a big smile on his face, the big confidence boost, and let's say it is a check box on your list to-dos. To get a win in a 2.4 here in the majors is never easy. To get a win in the 2.4 in the top split is even harder. And to walk away with the amount of competition behind you, with Aiden pushing as hard as he can, with Ericsson trying to make up a bit of ground. Lasso has worked incredibly hard for first place, but it's not over yet. He cannot take a breath. He cannot lose focus, as we've seen many, unfortunately, losing time, many diving off into the dirt, and very few actually collecting the wall.
Well, the key here for Aiden Matthias is the fact that it's got to be 2 seconds a lap, really, from here to give yourself the opportunity on the final lap. That's where it's going to have to hold, and Matthias has pulled that gap down to 6.1, 6 seconds, 5.9 now going by. As it's a case of hefty traffic behind Saarinen. Edward Shelley's had to get by on this lap as Lasso. Now past Karstecker, who is there to try and get through. A little bit of kick up then from Matthias going off at the exit of the final, or of the final corner of the bottom of the circuit there, which is Mulsanne corner. So there is every single sense of desperation with 10 minutes to go, that every single place can be hunted down for, and Edward Shelley is hoping for clear overtakes and a little bit of trouble to clear out there for these drivers going through, like Aiden Matthias, for example, who is so bottled up right now with Hafler Darson and Saarinen and Alex Crow. This is where the race is going to be won or lost by how quickly Aiden Matthias can get through that slew of traffic.
That's where you got to just empty out the battery, try and clear as much of the traffic as possible. You don't want to get fouled up towards the start finish line as it tightens up into the chicane. The full chicanes can be brutal, and you don't want to land up as a hypercar caught behind a GT3 there, because it is pedestrian. Ed Matthias, however, puts the hammer down, runs close to the Porsche wall, heading towards Chevrolet. It's all about keeping the power on as much as possible to get clear of the LMP2, but he's going to be right onto the back of Kassler into the Ford chicanes, and he's going to try and look for the inside line. Does so, sends it, gets the pass done, but only just by that point.
But look at what it's costing him over this run. Remember, that gap was about 6 seconds, and this will be a long, hefty lap here, 27.8, so was able to get a little bit of momentum sorted, but a 28.4 from Ruben Lasso means, once again, it's another case of drivers that are there trying to find that time. It's not enough at the moment. There's 3 laps to go, and it's got to be 2.2 seconds a lap now from Aiden Matthias between now and the end. Kurtzer, short, has to dive into the pits with Eric Smith.
This is a nightmare, and those fuel calculations that you had at the start of the race bite you at the end. That's for certain. Daniel Holmer, however, trying to clear the traffic as he makes his way through. Easy pass around our LMP2s, and just needs to start ticking away to move forward. He's in 6th. He's aiming for a top 5, but Bart Mattea up ahead is also just keeping on the gas. This is where you're starting to press it a little bit harder. Your battery levels are starting to come down. You're starting to work with 50% by the end of the Mozon straight left in the battery before you have to build it back up.
So we're talking 3 laps to go. Gavroski's not certain here for 3rd position overall with Daniel Thomas. You've got Jefka Karstecker, who's not safe against Edward Shelley. And you've got Aiden Matthias, who is making sure this drive's not safe. Jan Hilden around.
Jan Hilden going and losing the rear. It looks okay, however, so he was able to keep it out of the wall, but will have to scrub those tyres clean as we go back to Michael Michael Hafdarson, who is still putting the pressure, trying to get into that top 5 of our LMP2, with Alex Crow just within arm's reach of it.
Well, Alex Crow right now might need to take a little hint if it gets close here from Russell Crowe and go fighting round the world at this point, because he looks behind. That's Luke Mann trying to get through, and you're going to have to say, you wait for me, sunshine, in terms of how you go through. Mann's going to have to get the drive off the exit, does so. Perfect in terms of the clearance. Look in front, that's Edward Shelley, who moves immediately to take the toe of Jesper Eriksson to try and move by here with Jefka Karstecker. looking for that podium. This is what happened to Jan Hilden, diving down to the inside. Now, is that Saarinen on that inside line? It is, and to avoid contact there, had to go so slow on the inside that the mechanical grip just never came back.
Right onto just over the curb as well, so really pushing it quite tight into the corner to avoid slowing the car down as much as possible. And I think as the car bottomed out, it just snapped underneath him, running over the curb, and that's something that you do have as Fabio getting the run on his own teammate. Gets it done and dusted. Matthew Crisp not going to be happy with that. Dropped a wheel on the dirt, lost a bit of time as they get caught up behind our Porsche.
Yeah, so that, trying to get pace, is Seb Jackson, who is behind still Ruppert and Griggs for placement, so still searching about, looking for Hafler-Darson. Oh my goodness me, at the Porsche curves, Michael Hafler-Darson, a slide through the middle, contact with the LMP that tried to, or the LMDH that went through. That was Bart Mattia, the contact with, and Hafler-Darson gets dumped.
Dawson did very well to keep it out of the wall. That could have ended in more tears, but he's able to carry on the drive. Will have to try and cool those tires down, however, and it takes him out of the running.
I'll tell you what, I think Ruben Lasso's safe with the pace he's running. Hafler-Darson going through, so Mattia trying to go around the outside to command the inside line. Oh, never good. It's 2 into 1. It's a bit of A, it's a bit of B. And there you can see sliding through. Did very well to make sure it was nothing more than that with the safer barrier there on the outside.
I've got to say, you couldn't cut it any finer if you tried. And that is Travis Walling into pit lane with 4 minutes to go. This is not good for him, as he will lose out quite a few positions. There's Aiden Matthias, who's trying everything he can to catch up to Lasso. Not enough time left in the race, but still a stellar drive on his part, being one of 2 BMWs that were fighting it out in the GTP class.
They're still there, there's still chances, but it's going to have to rely now on a mistake from Ruben Lasso, who leads this one. I want to go back to third in your LMP2 field because Jefka Karstecker is going to have to defend now here with Edward Shelley. Bart Mattia has gone through, and now it will be Daniel Holmer's turn, and it's about how quickly can you jump onto the back of that toe to go and get yourself something. Moves back into line, that'll be more help for Karstecker, but here comes Shelley, looking now towards the inside, covered defence, then by Karstecker, who looks at this. Shelley thinking about a move, not going to be here, but maybe at Mulsanne corner itself.
Definitely put his nose in and thought about it. The little voice inside his head was shouting at the top of his lungs, go for it, go for it. Shelley going and erring on the side of caution, however, will utilize the toe and will have to get it done and dusted. He does see that there's a GTP starting to gain a little bit of the ground, looks towards the inside line, second guesses it as well, not as confident on the brakes, and this makes it a little bit more tricky for him at the bottom of the Motorsport straight. Loses out so much time, however. Shelley will have to claw it all back into the fray. Also
Could have thrown it,
however.
Could have thrown it down the inside, but Oscar Fredriksson was there. Cobb through then, making the pass on Ryan Walker. That will be one to go up into P number 8 with that pass, and Ryan Walker will have to fight back with what will be one more lap left of racing action here from the Circuit des 24 Hours du Mans, and that will be when Ruben Lasso will cross the line and take that final lap. Walker trying to attack back here along the backstretch to Indianapolis, thought about it, outside to inside as they go through. The incident then with car number 5, Bart Mattia, will be judged after the race is done. So Mattia, who is 5th overall at the moment, there might be a couple issues out there late, which will drop him a couple of points. But Walker unable to do much about that. They'll go by Hafler-Darson, and the last lap now starts for Ruben Lasso here in this race, who will now think that with about 5 seconds worth of margin, it may just be enough to hold. 1 second for Edward Shelley to hunt down Jefka Kasteka, and that's going to be big for the end of this race. Hafler Darson too far back now from Alex Crow as far as things go, but Daniel Thomas is not a million miles away either from Trevor Vavroski, who has held the pace well, but that gap is 2.2 seconds. Esa Pulkkinen also at 2 seconds, with David Baker looking for championship points out there here today. Holmer remaining close on the back of Bart Mattia as they enter the final lap.
And this is going to be interesting for Daniel Holmer as he has to put down all the power. This is where you switch from being conservative to aggressive. This is where you start utilizing all the power that's in the battery. There's no point to saving it. It's all about putting the power down, making it all work, and continuing on. Has he got enough in the tank? Has he got enough energy stored to fight it out, to move up into 5th place? That top 5 only an arm's reach away, and he's gonna have to get extremely serious. He's gonna have to get aggressive. For Bart Mattia, we've seen him get extremely defensive and holding his positions early on the brakes. However, those tires starting to fade out on him. These GDPs do get a little bit slushy under braking as soon as the tire life starts to fade out, where you just have to feel where is the grip, where are you gonna go, and it's so easy to have the tail come out underneath you.
Where is that final limit that is there? Daniel Holmer is thinking, what more do I have to do to get that final place? Bart Mattia is holding, but remember, he's got investigation pending out there at the moment. So it might be a case of, even if he doesn't make this move, Holmer may still finish ahead with just half a lap left to go's worth of running. It is a day of dominance out there for many, but those who look to try and find those results that are needed, it has been a tough port of call. 1.6 now the gap for Edward Shelley. Close is Daniel Holmer into Mulsanne corner. Doesn't quite work. Kasteka then still holds. 2.1 for Trevor Vavroski over Daniel Thomas. That still holds, but Daniel Holmer is still looking for the home run hit in the final stages of this race, knowing there is not long left to make it happen. Up to Indianapolis is the last great chance to make a move out there on this track, and Daniel Holmer is just not close enough. Moving through into the fast left-hander, just isn't there, and the hold is still in play. Into the Porsche curves for the final time goes Ruben Lasso, who leads this field and knows that he is just, and I mean just, got by on Tom Griggs in LMP2. So Griggs will get to finish this one a lap early, but Ruben Lasso, who has done well through the safety car, that gave himself the gap, that said, I can outlast Jesper Eriksson, the championship leader, will jump through the Ford curves, will jump to the rear cordon and will jump for joy when he gets out of his car, because Ruben Lasso comes to the line and takes the victory in GTP here at the 24 Hours du Mans. And in this 2.4-hour race, Matthias is second. Tom Griggs will take his category win as he crosses the line. Side by side to the rear cordon they go, and for Bart Mattia, it's a hold, and at the middle of the road, it's a hold again. Jesper Eriksson will take third in category, and we will wait now for Joni Kattila to run towards the line, because he will have the GT3 category in his back pocket. Felix Rupert in second position.
Gonna be so happy with that, and there's Joni Kattila making his way through, keeping it all together. 7 going 8 seconds. Hard-fought fight through to the front of the GT3 class. Has been one of the fastest of the GT3 class. Will be breathing a sigh of relief at the moment. Continuing on the drive, and what a stellar effort on his part.
It's a very, very accomplished drive. Remember, qualified the car on pole, elected to start from pit lane, had to go back through the field twice today to get to Jesse Saarinen, and then had to make the pass and clearance. 8 seconds doesn't do the justice. He could have won by 108 seconds here today. Joni Katala will move his way through the final corner to the line and comfortably take the win here in GT3. Saarinen will be second, and it is a second and a half for Daniel Thomas against Trevor Vavrovsky, but he's just going to run out of laps. Here is Daniel.
What a drive. Trevor Vavrovsky, who took the gamble of pitting a lot later into the race, was right in for a splash and dash, still holds on to third. And Daniel Thomas, you could see just frantically trying to figure out where he can go. Vavrovsky is going to be smiling ear to ear, and definitely Lady Luck was in the pits there, smiling down on him.
Yep, and wonderfully done as well. Those races between them, there will be a handful of cars left to try and find the finish, like Esa Pulkkinen, for example. But effectively, the majority of this field has now found its finish and got themselves over the line. We will have the ability to run through the unofficial classified results here from the Circuit Day 24-hour Du Mans, where it's the 577 car of Ruben Lasso that comes to the line and picks up the win, and does so in 2 hours, 26 minutes and 9 seconds, and wins by a margin of 4.1 on the late charging Aiden Matthias, who ran out of time to chase that gap down. Jesper Eriksson, the gap will stay the same between himself and to Trevor Vavrovsky at 30-odd points in this championship with a third-place finish. Luke Mann will be fourth ahead of Daniel Holmer in fifth. Bart Mattia, pending penalty, in sixth position at this moment in time. We will see what that happens with post-race as Oscar Fredriksson goes off and finishes seventh, with Austin Cobb in eighth position. It is then Ryan Walker ninth and Uldis Putekilis in the 666, who rounds out your top 10. Tom Dreiling and Adam Preston finish as the last two cars on the lead lap in class. Sebastian Jackson finished behind about 5 of your LMP2s, with Aleix Nahui, who was going to be one of the favourites in this race today, out, along with Jerry Furkolb, who does not find a finish in LMDH. In LMP2, though, here, Stephen, a day in which it was dominant at the front.
Tom Greggs ultimately going and getting a lap on everyone. Felix Rupert in second place. We got Jeffka Costa in third, followed by Edward Shelley in fourth. Hard fought to find it out with Alex Crow. Michael Haftarson in sixth. Seventh is Fabio Grassato. Matthew Crisp, Garen Britton scoring a huge amount of points for himself, finishing in ninth place, and Jan Holden in 10th for our LMP2s. Moving down, Tom Gust running in 11th with Travis Walling in 12th. Stephen Verweyen in 13th. Chris Tobias, Byron Kutzer after the climb from the back. Ulrich Smith, we got Eric Smith, Bacon Short, Cameron Brown, and Brian Scrivener in 19th of our LMP2 class. Looking back towards our GT3, however, it's gotten a little bit wild.
It did, but it was a case of last to first to last to first to last to first for Joni Katala, who wins by 8 seconds over Jesse Saarinen in second. Trevor Vavrovsky, that third here today for the Composite Performance team, is huge. It will give them a lot of confidence to say with Trevor that he is right in the hunt in the battle up against Jesper Eriksson. Fourth would belong to Daniel Thomas, with Esa Pulkkinen in fifth and David H. Baker in sixth position. Richard Kumlin is seventh in this one, ahead of Jeff Schmeier in eighth, with Ray Partridge and Gary Thomas, who spent a little time at the front of this field, rounding out the top 10. Wayne Hutchison is 11th, ahead of Claude Belval. Michael Hogg found himself in the barriers early on, but was able to recover it, with Joshua Hampton having a disconnect and being stuck a lap down for the entirety of the race in 14th. Scott Kukas, the Kitty Cat car, does not have much luck. So for Scott Kukas, a retirement here, and the first of the 49 cars here today to find a non-finish. But as things go with racing action, we do have the opportunity to chat with drivers. Stephen Koenig has walked down the virtual pit lane and is stood by with Trevor Vavrovsky.
Trevor Brodsky, well done with the race. How are you feeling after 2.4 hours at the beautiful Le Mans circuit and having to fight it out tooth and nail?
It was a decent race. Third, I think, is pretty much all I could have asked for. Had a good little fight there with Daniel with some of the strategy stuff at the end, but overall, pretty happy with the pace. I think first among majors regulars, so maximizing points. So it's a very good day.
Take us through safety car coming into play. How did that affect your strategies into this race?
Well, we had something similar back at Daytona for the Daytona 2.4, and I found in that race it was getting as much fuel on board was going to pay dividends later on in the race, and especially at Le Mans where overtaking can be done relatively easy due to the draft. Just sacrificing the track position to have that extra fuel on board, I think helped play with that fuel game that me and Daniel were playing there towards the end. So.
And last of it, I mean, getting into the final 20 minutes, diving into the pits for a splash and dash, was there a concern of losing out the position to Daniel Thomas behind you?
For sure. I think if everybody was on clean track, I was the 5th fastest car today. And seeing him come in early, I was kind of curious if that would work, if he just had enough raw pace to be able to outrun it. But I think with my car having the lighter fuel, I was able to just hold him off. But he was charging again at the end. I think he only finished like a second or so behind me. So an extra lap or two and might have been curtains for me. So it worked out really well, though.
Well, absolutely fantastic. While I got you here, anything you want to say to all the petrol heads out there in the virtual grandstands, the drivers, the teams, and all of the majors admin?
Yeah, I mean, another good event. I mean, I think the safety car went relatively smoothly for everybody, so shout out to the admins for making that go smooth. And then, it's good prep here for me, for being a part of the composite team, hopefully going into the majors 24 and hoping to have another strong run there. So, it was an overall really good day.
Trevor, thank you very much. Absolutely incredible. Go and enjoy the champagne for finishing up in 3rd place of the GT3 field.
Thank you.
Well, there was one Mr. Trevor Vavrosky, the driver he's trying to chase down. Is going to be with us right now. Jesper Eriksson here along with me here. Jesper, P3 today. It's going to be parity between you and Trevor, who becomes your nearest rival now in the championship, leaving this circuit with both of you scoring 3rd place finishes. But talk us through just coming out of the pits. It looked like you were up there battling Ruben for the race victory. And what happened to you on that outlap, which cost you all that time and the opportunity to fight for the win today?
Well, it cost me the victory. It's quite stressed because he was on the lap warmer tires and I was on basically super new tires, and coming into the first Motion chicane, took a bit too much curb, lost the rear and just spun around, so which is unfortunate, but he was the fastest guy today and deserved the win.
For you, a case of seeing your team all take the same class. There was a little bit of a understanding of when you get these races and each category scores the same amount of points. Do you feel like you get more security for Sweden SimRace Esports when you're all running the same car rather than each trying to take maximum points in each class?
Yeah, for us it's more everyone is getting used to the same car and we can rely on each other for feedback and stuff, instead of everyone getting used to a different car and can't rely feedback on each other and not share setups and stuff like that. So it's mostly for us a comfort ground, and of course this event being a perfect practice for the Le Mans 24 hours, we took that decision to make everyone in the same class.
Yeah, that will be very interesting to see how that goes. We've also got the Majors 24 that's coming up later this month. So as far as it goes for you and getting yourself ready for that, what is it that gets you ready for a 24-hour race with the team? Have you finalized lineups yet? Have you looked at that practice line that's gone through, or is it still in the mind stage of trying to work out what exactly we need to do and exactly what needs to be sorted before the event?
For us, the lineups are complete, so at the moment it's just practice, think about what we can do for strategy, but of course for the Majors 24 there's gonna be safety cars, so it's hard to predict. But just practice, get used to everything. The car can we make set up and stuff like that. So that's basically our plan at the moment.
Well, for you, a chance then to walk away at the championship lead. It is a slight increase, but still 30-odd points the gap at the top. Jesper Eriksson joining us there, picking up a 3rd place overall with racing action done today here from this Circuit de la Sarthe. But that will bring proceedings then over to a close here from this wonderful racing bed here of racing action, and actually overall sports action as well, with the Marie-Marvin Stadium, which is over in Tetra Rouge Corner, which is always nice to see if you ever get a chance to watch any rugby or any football out there. From Stephen Koenig, Daniel Costello and Dougie Beard here, my name's Jake Sperry, and this has been a Genesis Extreme production on the Global Sim Racing channel. In terms of the next lot of racing with the Major Series, you can tune in with us on the 21st and the 22nd of June, because when it comes to the racing action, we are going to be top and tail for what we are looking at. Your first 6 and last 6 hours are going to be here with us and uninterrupted. You can catch that with us here on the Global Sim Racing channel, and trust me, there will be a lot of drivers and teams who want to go out and make their name known in this race. As far as what comes up next, you've got the likes, of course, of Porsche Owners Club, which will be in play. That'll be taking on Barcelona, and a little bit of a more retro feel over the last couple of years with the layout there. You've then got Grand Prix Legends, which will be tackling Charlotte Motor Speedway. The IMSA Vintage Series will be back here at Le Mans, but they won't be using a chicane. They'll be going flat out along the Mulsanne Straight. And then your Skip Barber Race Series on Sunday the 7th will be hitting Mount Panorama Bathurst for the final round of the seasons there on your championship Sunday. But as far as it goes, it was a day where different drivers wanted to jump in and make their cases. Ruben Lasso holding off the challenge of Aidan Matthias. Tom Griggs holding himself steady at the front of LMP2. Yoni Kattler proving that he's got pace for days in a GT3 McLaren. But the championship has some parity to it. 3rd place for Trevor Vavrovsky. 3rd place for the championship leader, Jesper Eriksson. All to play for after the 24 hours. And then when the second half of the season kicks in, it's a case of get down to crunch time and see who's got what it takes late on in your Major Series.
This is iRacing.
Hey, you know that guy who just before the green flag keys up his mic and asks, "Anybody got a setup?" Well, this is him. This is Adam, and hey, Adam needs some help. On the other hand, this guy over here, this is Steve. Steve is a solid racer and he knows his way around the garage. Steve's problem is time. With a job and a family, he can't find enough time to build competitive setups and to race as often as he likes. But as luck would have it, Steve knows a secret. He lets the Majors Garage crew chiefs do the setup work so he can focus on the racing. At majorsgarage.com, Steve can get setups for over 60 cars on the iRacing service. So no matter what series he wants to jump into, he is covered. Somebody, anybody, really should tell Adam. See you at the garage.